Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Legacy here. Today, we're exploring a pretty wild fanfic scenario. What if Naruto was raised by Whitebeard? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you're always in the loop when a new one drops. Let's set a small goal. 59 likes on this video. I know we can hit it. Alright, let's get into it. The Grand Line was not a place for the faint of heart, and tonight it roared its disapproval at the Moby Dick's intrusion. Black waves heaved against the mighty ship's hull, thunder splitting the sky in blue-white veins. Salt spray stung the eyes, rain lashed the deck, and the crew scrambled to tie down sails and cargo. Above it all, the Whitebeard pirates' flag snapped in the wind, a reminder that their captain feared nothing, not even the fury of the sea itself. Marco, 1st Division commander, was the first to spot the anomaly. "Oyaji, something's off starboard." His voice, sharpened by urgency, cut through the storm's howl. On the bridge, Whitebeard himself stood tall and unmoved, his crescent mustache and colossal frame dwarfing the helm. "Aye, Marco. What is it?" "Can't tell." Marco squinted, blue flames licking his shoulders as he took flight. Lightning flashed, illuminating the sea, and there, bobbing between the swells, was a strange metal capsule. It was shaped almost like a cradle, but reinforced with gilded bands and glass, a crest burned into the side. As Marco swooped down and snatched it from the water, the crew gathered, weapons at the ready. Thatch wrinkled his nose. "That's celestial dragon filigree. Only they'd make something so gaudy." Josu's hands flexed, ready to shatter it. Could be a trap. Marines, maybe. Or something worse. A tense silence fell. Even pirates who had faced death more times than they could count eyed the object with unease. The celestial dragons were the world's so-called gods, cruel, untouchable, hated by pirates and commoners alike. Nothing good ever came from them. But Whitebeard just looked at the capsule, eyes narrowing, and nodded to Marco. "Open it." Marco hesitated, then unclasped the locks with careful hands. The crew crowded closer, muscles tight with anticipation. With a soft hiss, the lid cracked open. Inside, wrapped in a blue blanket, was a baby, a tiny, golden-haired boy with sun-bright whisker marks on his cheeks. He was screaming, fists balled, eyes a stormy blue, defiant even in helplessness. The celestial dragon seal was tattooed on the back of his shoulder, angry and red against pale skin. Silence fell, thicker than the night's darkness. The baby's wails cut through the storm, raw and furious, yet somehow alive. Unyielding. Thatch was the first to break. "What the hell is this? They sent us a brat." "Or a message," Vista said grimly, hand on his sword. "We should toss it overboard, before it brings trouble." Marco frowned, sensing something odd. For just a moment, when the baby cried, the air tingled, a shimmer of power prickling at the skin. "Did anyone else feel that?" he muttered. Josu grunted. Felt like the time Shanks visited, and the sky went weird. As if on cue, the baby let out a final, desperate wail. For a heartbeat, the storm paused. Lightning stilled midair. Even the sea seemed to hush. Whitebeard knelt beside the capsule, his shadow swallowing the cradle whole. His hand, thick as an anchor, reached out. He didn't flinch from the mark or the power. He just looked into those blue eyes, eyes as fierce as the sea after a storm. "Listen here, Brad," Whitebeard said, voice as deep as distant thunder. "You've got fire in you. You're scared, but you're loud. I like that." The baby hiccuped, blinking away tears, mesmerized by the man's presence. "Are you serious, Oyaji?" Thatch hissed. "This isn't a dog we can take in. That marks a death sentence." Whitebeard glanced at his crew, his gaze sharp as a cutlass. "Do any of you think a child chooses the family he's born into?" Nobody answered. He grunted, shifting the baby into his massive arm with surprising gentleness. "Then that settles it. We make our own family here. If the gods want him gone, we'll show them what it means to have a father on the sea." The crew murmured, some in relief, others in disbelief. Marco let out a breath, shoulders easing. "You sure, Oyaji? With all due respect, this could bring the Marines on us. Or worse." Whitebeard's laughter boomed across the deck, louder than thunder, shaking water from the rigging. "Marines are always after us. Let them come. And if this brat is cursed, he'll fit right in." He bent closer, so only the baby could hear. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Why here? The sea's your cradle now." As if understanding, the child calmed, clutching Whitebeard's finger with surprising strength. The strange aura faded, and the wind lost its bite. Thunder rumbled in the distance, already softer. The rain slackened. Under the faint, flickering lanterns, the crew looked on as their captain, the world's strongest man, rocked the smallest, most mysterious member of their family. Thatch sighed, running a hand through his hair. Well, if Oyaji says so, what'll we call him? Whitebeard glanced at the baby, then out at the clearing sky, where dawn struggled against the clouds. He needs a name that fits this world and our family. Naruto. That's what he'll be called. Marco cocked an eyebrow. Naruto, huh? Strange name. Whitebeard grinned, eyes sparkling with mischief and pride. Aye, it's got a ring to it, don't you think? Welcome to the crew, Naruto. Some of the younger pirates, curious now that the tension had eased, crept closer. Naruto gurgled and blew a bubble, making even the hardiest laugh. Joza grinned, ruffling the baby's wild hair with a massive finger. Guess we've got a new little brother, boys. In the distance, the storm passed. The first rays of morning broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the battered but unbowed Moby Dick. Naruto's cries faded into soft coos, as if even he sensed he'd found something like home. And so, in the aftermath of a storm that could have spelled disaster, the Whitebeard pirates found a new source of chaos and hope, swaddled in a blanket, bearing the mark of the world's cruelty, but the heart of a pirate. Far above, the world government's flag snapped in the wind, unaware that their abandoned secret had just been claimed by the sea's greatest rebel. The legend of Naruto, son of Whitebeard, had begun. The Moby Dick was never a quiet ship, but with Naruto on board, chaos became the new normal. At 3 years old, Naruto was a blur of golden hair and endless energy, his voice echoing across the decks like a second battle cry. If he wasn't climbing the rigging, ignoring Marco's shouts to get down before you fall into the sea you are, he was raiding the galley, stuffing his cheeks with anything remotely edible. To the cook's horror, he once devoured an entire barrel of salted fish, then complained about still being hungry. On one particularly rowdy morning, Thatch chased Naruto around the mess hall, both of them ducking between tables. Thatch brandished a ladle, his apron smeared with flour. "You little monster. That was my best stew. Get back here." Naruto, face smeared with broth, darted under Ace's chair and tugged at his older brother's pants leg. "Help, Ace. He's gonna cook me next." Ace, lounging with a mug of juice, just grinned. "You did steal half the pot, Naruto. That's pirate justice." "Pirate justice is dumb," Naruto declared, poking his tongue out. He bolted for the door, nearly crashing into Marco, who barely caught him by the scruff of his shirt. "Oi, oi, easy." Marco set Naruto back on his feet, shaking his head. "You're going to turn the ship upside down at this rate, you are." Naruto just laughed, bright and wild. The crew couldn't help but smile, even Thatch, who, after a dramatic sigh, handed over a smaller bowl of stew, muttering, "Here. Next time, you ask." There were quieter moments too. In the evenings, as the sun dipped low and the sea shimmered, Naruto would sprawl across Whitebeard's lap, listening to stories of the old days. The old man's rumbling voice lulled him, even as he asked 100 questions a minute. "Old man, is it true you punched a sea king so hard its teeth flew out?" "Aye, brat. And I made a necklace from the teeth for your brother here," Whitebeard said, ruffling Ace's hair. Ace puffed out his chest. "I still have it. See." Naruto's eyes went wide, filled with awe. "I'm gonna get a necklace like that, and be the world's best pirate, just like you." Whitebeard's laugh boomed, shaking the whole deck. "That's the spirit, Naruto." But not everyone was so comfortable. Some of the crew still eyed the faint scar of the celestial dragon brand on Naruto's shoulder, the way it seemed to glow when he was upset or scared. And there were moments, late at night, when Naruto's temper would flare and the air would shimmer, tiny tendrils of red energy flickering around him. Once, during a squabble over the last rice ball, a gust of wind had swept through the mess, scattering plates and sending a crewmate tumbling headfirst into a barrel. Marco, ever watchful, had been the first to notice. One night, after Naruto's outburst, he found the boy sitting alone at the bow, knees hugged to his chest, staring at the moonlit waves. "Couldn't sleep, you are?" Marco asked, settling beside him. Naruto shook his head. "I'm not like everyone else. When I get mad, weird stuff happens. Some guys, they look at me funny, like they're scared." Marco was quiet for a while, watching the stars. Then he nudged Naruto gently. "You know, a lot of us have something weird about us. Even Oyaji. Even me. It's not about where you come from. Naruto. It's about what you do for the people who matter. Naruto looked up, chewing on Marco's words. You really think so? Marco smiled. Yeah. And if anyone gives you trouble, just tell them Marco'll turn them into a chicken. That got a laugh out of Naruto, who immediately demanded, can you really do that? Only if they're extra bad, Marco promised, with a wink. Life on the sea was a rhythm, a blur of rough work, laughter, and endless adventure. Ace, a few years older and already showing signs of his own fiery power, became Naruto's partner in crime. The two brothers were inseparable, pranking Jozu, who could take it, pestering Thatch for snacks, and sneaking into Whitebeard's quarters to listen to pirate legends. Whenever Naruto got into trouble, Ace was there, arms crossed, smirking. Don't worry, old man. I'll make sure he doesn't sink the ship. Whitebeard grunted, pretending to be annoyed, but his eyes twinkled. Just remember, you two, no ship sinks while I'm captain. On stormy days, when the sea tossed the Moby Dick and thunder rumbled overhead, Naruto would sit at the prow, watching the lightning dance. There was a longing in his eyes, a restless, searching feeling. Ace found him there once, after a bad dream. What's wrong, Naruto? Naruto hesitated. Do you ever wonder why we're here? I mean really here. Ace shrugged, plopping down beside him. You mean on the ship? Or, like in the world? Both, Naruto admitted, fidgeting with the white sash tied around his waist. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere. The mark, the weird power. I wasn't born here. Ace was silent for a moment, then punched Naruto lightly in the arm. Idiot. You belong right here, with us. Who cares where you came from? You're my little brother. That's all that matters. Naruto looked up, surprised, then grinned so hard his cheeks hurt. Thanks, Ace. They sat together as the rain eased, the world calm once more. One evening, as the crew gathered for a feast, Naruto, mouth stuffed with rice balls, looked around at his mismatched family. Marco, teasing Thatch over his cooking. Jozu arm wrestling with Vista. Ace laughing so hard, he nearly fell off his chair. Whitebeard raised his cup, surveying his sons with a father's pride. Family ain't blood. It's heart. Every one of you chose to be here, and I chose you. The crew cheered, banging mugs against the tables. Naruto's chest swelled with happiness. For the first time, he didn't feel different. He felt home, and as laughter echoed across the sea, the boy with the celestial dragon's mark and the demon fox's power knew that, here among pirates, he was exactly where he belonged. Dawn broke with a restless wind over the new world. The Moby Dick sailed calmly, its white sails gleaming in the golden light, but the quiet never lasted long for pirates. Naruto, now 5 and nearly as wild as the sea itself, clambered up to the bow and stretched, sniffing the salty air. Every day was a new adventure, and today felt charged with something different. Marco landed next to him, stretching his wings. Sleep well, Naruto? Wah, you look like trouble already. Naruto grinned, flashing his fox-like smile. I'm always trouble. Ask Thatch. The day's peace didn't last. From the crow's nest, a sharp shout rang out. Marine ship, closing in from the east. They're flying the Vice Admiral's flag. The crew snapped to readiness. Whitebeard, massive and calm, stood at the helm, eyes sharp. Looks like the world government wants to play. As the marine ship drew close, its cannons gleaming and banners snapping, a metallic voice echoed over a din mushy. Surrender the child marked by the celestial dragons, and we will spare your crew. Resist, and you'll all be sunk to the depths. Naruto froze. The celestial dragon's brand on his shoulder seemed to burn. Ace, already bristling, stepped in front of him. No one's taking you, little brother. But the tension on deck was thick. Some of the newer crewmates looked anxious. Naruto could hear the whispers. He's the reason they're after us. Is he really worth the risk? Whitebeard bellowed. Nobody touches my family. Prepare for battle, sons. The crew roared, snapping out of their fear. Marco swooped into the sky. Jozu braced himself at the rail. Thatch barked orders, and Ace's fists sparked with flame. Whitebeard turned to Naruto, voice gentle. Stay below deck, brat. This ain't your fight. But no buts. Protecting you is my job. Naruto scowled but obeyed, at least for a few seconds. As the first cannonballs flew and swords clashed, Naruto snuck out and peered through a hatch, heart pounding. The Marines poured over the rails in waves, blue uniforms everywhere, shouting for the celestial dragon child. He watched as Marco blazed through the sky. Ace's fireballs exploded across the deck, and even Thatch swung his frying pan like a sword. But then, Amid the chaos, Naruto spotted a marine officer closing in on Ace, sword raised. Naruto's feet moved before he could think. "Leave my brother alone," he shouted, rushing forward. The officer sneered. "You're the one we're here for." He swung his blade, too fast. Naruto felt something snap inside. A pulse of heat, of anger, of desperate love for his family. Red chakra surged from his skin, swirling around him in a violent wind. The officer froze, eyes wide with terror. A blast of invisible force sent the marine flying backward, crashing through the rail and into the sea. The fighting paused as every eye snapped to Naruto, who stood trembling, his small fists clenched, red chakra flickering like firelight. For a moment, even the marines hesitated. Ace grabbed Naruto, pulling him close. "Are you okay? What did you just—" I don't know." Naruto stammered, eyes wild. Whitebeard strode forward, his giant Bicinto cutting a path through the chaos. "You picked the wrong ship to attack," he thundered. With one swing, he shattered the air, sending a quake crashing into the marine vessel. The waves buckled, marines screamed, and within minutes, the enemy ship was in retreat, battered and broken. As the crew mopped up and counted heads, all eyes turned to Naruto. Thatch whistled low. What the hell was that power? Marco frowned thoughtfully, a spark of concern in his eyes. Definitely not devil fruit. Something different. Whitebeard approached Naruto, who shrank back, afraid he'd done something wrong. But the old man simply knelt and looked him in the eye. "You protected your brother. That's what matters." His voice was calm, but full of pride. Naruto hesitated. "But the crew, what if they're scared of me? What if the Marines keep coming because of me?" Whitebeard's laughter rumbled, low and reassuring. "Let them come. You're my son, Naruto. Family ain't about blood or where you came from. It's about who you stand with when the world's against you." He reached into his coat and pulled out a white sash, embroidered with the crew's symbol. He tied it around Naruto's forehead, hands impossibly gentle for such a giant. "You belong to us now. You carry the will of the sea, the will of D. But I see something else in you, too. A fire that won't go out, no matter what." Naruto's eyes shone. "The will of fire." Whitebeard grinned, mustache twitching. Maybe that's what'll change this world. Hold on to it, no matter what happens." Naruto swallowed, the meaning of those words settling into his chest. He looked around at his family. Ace, Marco, Thatch, Jozu, and the others, battered but grinning. For the first time, he wasn't just a burden or a secret. He was a son, a brother, a pirate. He clenched his fist around the white sash and made a vow, voice trembling but strong. "I'll get stronger. I'll protect everyone, my family, my friends. I promise, old man. I'll never run away." Whitebeard's laughter boomed, full of pride. "That's my boy." As the sun broke through the clouds and the Moby Dick sailed on, Naruto stood at the bow, sash fluttering, heart burning with resolve. The world would remember the day it tried to steal a child from the Whitebeard pirates, and failed. From this day on, the will of fire and the will of D would sail together, and nothing would ever be the same. Years passed on the Grand Line, and the legend of the little boy found in the storm grew with every sunrise. Naruto was rarely still. He raced through the Moby Dick's endless corridors, his laughter ringing from the figurehead to the crow's nest. As the seasons turned, his wild blonde hair grew spikier, his appetite more infamous, and his pranks far more elaborate. Ace, just a bit older, had become both Naruto's rival and guardian. Together, they turned the ship into a playground and a battlefield. Whether they were sneaking sweets from Thatch's pantry or racing to be first in line for story time on Whitebeard's knee, chaos seemed to swirl around them like the wake of a great ship. Naruto formed his own crew of misfits, sons of division commanders, young recruits, and even a stowaway kitten they insisted was their lookout. He crowned himself Captain Naruto, waving a ragged hand-drawn flag and declaring, "Oh, they're gonna be the greatest pirates ever." Ace just smirked. "Only if you can beat me in a duel first, dope." Their fights became legendary. Two whirlwinds clashing across the deck, fists and feet, and insults flying, always ending with both boys laughing breathless in the sun. Sometimes, after a particularly wild skirmish, Jozu would scoop them up with one massive hand and toss them into the sea to cool off. Marco taught them how to throw a punch, dodge a sword, and, most importantly, how to get up after losing. "You two are hopeless," he'd say, smiling as he reset Naruto's dislocated shoulder for the third time that week. Despite the fun and freedom, some shadows lingered. On stormy nights, when the waves were tall and the wind screamed, Naruto would catch certain crewmates glancing at the red mark on his shoulder or whispering about the odd, fiery glow that sometimes flickered in his eyes. But with every challenge, Whitebeard stood between him and the world. "Anyone who judges my son for a power he didn't choose has no place on my ship," he declared, and no one dared argue. One fateful afternoon, the Moby Dick dropped anchor near Dawn Island, a regular haunt for pirates and travelers. The red-haired pirates were already there, rowdy and loud, Shanks at the center of the chaos. Naruto and Ace watched from the rail as a skinny, black-haired kid with a straw hat tried to lift a barrel of grog, tripped, and sent it rolling into the sea. "That's Luffy," Ace said, rolling his eyes. "He's my little brother. Good kid, but a total idiot." Naruto's eyes lit up. "He's your brother? Then he's my brother too." Without warning, he ran to greet the newcomers, nearly knocking Luffy flat. After a few minutes of bickering and comparing scars, the three boys found themselves sitting cross-legged on the deck, watched by a crowd of amused pirates and one very proud Shanks. On impulse, Naruto fetched 3 battered sake cups from the galley and filled them, 1 with juice, 2 with watered-down wine. "Let's make a promise," he said, voice trembling with excitement. "Someday, we'll meet again on the Grand Line, all as captains of our own crews. Brothers, forever." Ace grinned. "You're on, Naruto." Luffy raised his cup high. "I'm gonna be king of the pirates." They clinked their cups together. 3 dreamers, brothers not by blood but by choice, forging a bond that would outlast the sea itself. The Whitebeard crew roared their approval, banging mugs on tables and raising their own drinks to the sky. Marco caught Naruto's gaze and for once didn't scold him. "Yua, the world's not ready for you 3. Life rolled on in a riot of color. The years gave Naruto new scars, new stories, and new dreams. He grew strong, fast and tough, but never cruel. When a younger recruit fell, Naruto helped him up. When a lost child wandered aboard in a lifeboat, Naruto swore they'd have a home. His power grew with him, sometimes erupting in small bursts when his emotions ran wild. A gust of wind to save a friend from falling, a shield of red energy when Ace nearly drowned. Some of the crew remained wary, but most came to see the boy not as a curse, but as a brother, a son, a reason to hope. Whitebeard watched it all from his great throne on the deck, arms folded, laughter echoing over the waves. One night, as the ship sailed beneath a field of stars, Marco found the old man staring out at the horizon, the wind tugging at his coat. "You think the world's ready for a son like him, Oyaji?" Marco asked quietly. Whitebeard was silent for a long time. Finally, he shook his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. "The world wasn't ready for Roger. Or me. But that's not our problem, is it?" He looked back, watching Naruto, Ace, and Luffy, brothers under the same flag, already plotting their next adventure. "That brat," Whitebeard said softly, pride and worry mingling in his voice, "might shake the seas harder than anyone before. Even Roger." Above them, the stars burned bright, the promise of new legends. And below, the 3 brothers laughed, cups held high, ready to chase dreams as wide as the world. The prologue of their story was ending. The adventure, one that would change everything, was only just beginning. End of prologue arc. The sun hung high over the deck of the Moby Dick, dazzling on the ocean spray as 2 teenagers clashed in the shadow of the mainmast. Naruto, all restless energy and wild golden hair, squared off against Ace, who wore his signature hat cocked at a cocky angle and a smirk to match. They circled each other, wooden training swords in hand, the crew forming a noisy ring around them. Wagers flew, pirates shouted encouragement, mostly to Ace, but more and more for Naruto every year. Ace lunged first, swinging in a blur. Naruto ducked, rolled, and leapt up behind him with a whoop. "You're getting slow, old man." Ace snorted and swung low, sweeping Naruto's legs out. Naruto yelped, hit the deck, but twisted to grab Ace's ankle and haul him down too. The 2 tumbled in a heap, rolling until Marco sauntered in, flames flickering lazily from his shoulders. "All right, Yua, break it up." Marco nudged them apart with a sandal. "You both lose." Again, Jozu, arms crossed and grinning, watched from the sidelines. At this rate, The Marines are more scared of our training matches than our real battles. Ace grumbled, pushing to his feet. Naruto cheats. He makes stupid faces to distract me. Naruto stuck out his tongue, making half the crew laugh. It's called tactics, Ace. Gotta use all my weapons. Just don't use that weird red glow again. Thatch called, tossing Naruto a towel. Last time the galley nearly exploded. Naruto blushed, rubbing his shoulder. The memory of losing control, of power crackling under his skin, still made him uneasy. But lately, those incidents were fewer. Most days he could keep his strange energy in check. Most days. Marco clapped both boys on the shoulders. Good news, troublemakers. Jozu and I picked you for a mission. Just the two of you. He grinned at their stunned faces. Consider it a graduation test. Naruto's eyes lit up. For real? Our own mission? Jozu nodded. We've got a little island on our territory map, Sable Town. 2 local clans are squabbling, and if we don't settle it, someone else will. You two go, sort them out, and don't let anyone blow up the place. Understood, Ace saluted. Yes, sir. Naruto puffed out his chest. You can count on us. Marco handed Naruto a rolled-up parchment. You're in charge, Naruto. You've got the people skills. His gaze softened. Just remember what Oyaji always says. Listen before you swing. Naruto's jaw dropped. Wait, I'm the captain? But Ace always leads. Ace grinned, slinging an arm around Naruto's shoulders. Don't worry, I'll tell you what to do. Jozu shook his head, laughing. That's exactly why Naruto's the captain. Good luck, boys. Don't sink the boat. They set out in a longboat at dawn, Naruto at the helm, Ace complaining loudly about the heat and the lack of snacks. So what's the plan, Captain? Ace teased, kicking back with his hands behind his head. Naruto scanned the map, frowning. We talk to both sides, get the facts, then come up with something that doesn't end in a brawl. Marco said listening's important. Ace yawned. Boring. I say we just scare him a little. Worked last time, right? Naruto poked him with an oar. We're supposed to make friends, not new enemies. Besides, we're representing Oyaji. They reached Sable Town by noon, a sleepy port with sun-bleached docks and worried faces watching from behind closed shutters. 2 groups stood facing off in the square, yelling accusations. In the middle stood an old man with a Whitebeard flag on his house, waving his arms helplessly. Naruto drew a deep breath and strode into the fray. All right, everyone listen up. I'm Naruto of the Whitebeard Pirates. We're here to help. So pipe down and tell me what's going on. The squabbling townsfolk went silent, staring at the bold teenager with his unruly hair and confident grin. Someone whispered, That's the demon kid, isn't it? Naruto felt the old sting but pushed on, smiling even wider. Let's hear from both sides. Ace, you take the north group, I'll talk to the south. For the next hour, Naruto listened. Really listened, picking out details, calming tempers, promising fair judgment. Ace got bored halfway through and started juggling fireballs to entertain the kids. Naruto worked through the confusion, disputes over fishing rights, an old family feud, and a missing boat that both sides blamed on the other. As sunset painted the sky, Naruto gathered everyone in the square. Here's what I think, he announced. Nobody took your boat. It drifted out with the tide. He pointed to a small shape bobbing far out at sea. If you work together, you can bring it back and share the catch. If you fight, you'll both lose. An awkward silence. Then, slowly, the 2 clan leaders nodded, embarrassed. The old man with the Whitebeard flag grinned and clapped Naruto on the back. Ace sauntered over, smirking. Nice job, Captain. See, listening wasn't so hard, was it? Naruto grinned. I guess not. And your fire show didn't hurt, either. They spent the night in Sable Town, feasting with the villagers, swapping stories. Naruto's mini-division, a ragtag group of younger pirates who'd followed along, sat wide-eyed as he recounted the day's adventure, exaggerating Ace's heroics and his own cleverness. One of the boys whispered, Do you think we could be division leaders someday? Naruto thumped his chest. With enough guts and heart, anyone can be a leader. That's what Oyaji says. As the fire burned low and the villagers sang old sea songs, Ace leaned over, dropping his teasing for a moment. You did good today, Naruto. You acted like a real commander. Naruto blinked in surprise, then grinned, warmth blooming in his chest. Couldn't have done it without my first mate. Back on the Moby Dick, Marco listened to the report with a proud smile. You kept the peace, and nobody lost a finger. That's a win, Jozu nodded, arms folded. And you didn't burn down the town. Even better, Naruto beamed as the crew clapped him on the back and hoisted him onto their shoulders, chanting, "Captain Naruto! Captain Naruto!" Even the older pirates who still eyed his strange powers with caution couldn't deny the kid's spirit. As night fell, Naruto gazed out at the rolling sea from the prow, Ace beside him. They were stronger now, more trusted, and, maybe, just a little closer to their dream. Out there, the world was waiting, and Naruto was ready to meet it, flag flying high, as a true pirate under Whitebeard's name. The Moby Dick rode the turquoise swells, Whitebeard's fleet fanning out across the horizon. The day was deceptively calm. Sunlight glimmered off the sails as gulls circled above, and the crew lounged, sharing stories and plans for their next port. Naruto leaned over the rail, hair tousled by the wind, watching Ace toss fireballs for their mini-division. The younger pirates cheered, and Naruto grinned, his own hands itching with anticipation. "Think you can do better, Captain?" Ace challenged, a smirk in his eyes. Naruto scoffed. "I could if you'd stop showing off." But before he could demonstrate, a lookout's frantic shout pierced the air. Ships, dead ahead, enemy flags, and marines. The fleet's easy pace snapped into battle formation. Whitebeard, his presence alone enough to settle the wildest storm, barked orders as rival pirate ships closed in, a notorious crew known as the Bloodbeard Pirates, with Navy vessels flanking them. Cannonballs screamed through the sky. The air exploded with splinters and fire as the enemy fired on the Whitebeard ships. The deck shook beneath Naruto's feet. He drew his blade, heart pounding, as their own cannons thundered in reply. Bloodbeard's ship rammed the Moby Dick, board shattering. Dozens of cutthroat pirates swarmed over the rails, sabers drawn and eyes full of murder. Ace ignited, fists blazing. "Naruto, with me." Naruto leapt into the fray, Ace covering him with a wall of flame that turned boarders' swords to molten slag. Naruto's mini-division, nervous but determined, fought at his side, driving the attackers back step by step. A muscled Bloodbeard lieutenant squared up against Naruto, grinning. "Heard your Whitebeard's little demon. Let's see if you bleed." He charged, swinging a mace the size of Naruto's head. Naruto dodged, heart hammering, but the man was fast, too fast. A glancing blow sent Naruto sprawling. The lieutenant pressed in, sneering. "You're just a brat with a fancy birthmark." The word echoed. Naruto's vision blurred with panic and anger. All at once, that old, wild energy pulsed up from his gut, the chakra he'd struggled to hide. Red light crackled around him, the air warping. The attacker froze mid-swing as a phantom tail of red energy whipped out, sending him flying back with the force of a cannon blast. Everything stopped for a breath. Both pirate crews stared. Even the Marines, storming onto the deck, hesitated. Naruto stood in the center, surrounded by a searing red aura, eyes wild, power radiating from every pore. Ace grinned, relief and pride mingling in his voice. "Now that's what I'm talking about. Come on, Naruto, let's show them." Together, Ace and Naruto fought as one. Ace's fire cut a path through enemy pirates, while Naruto's chakra lashed out in explosive bursts, shattering swords and sending Marines tumbling back into the sea. The Whitebeard crew rallied, emboldened by the brothers' strength. On the bridge, a Marine officer raised a spyglass, his face blanching at the sight of Naruto's mark and his wild powers. "That's him, the Celestial Dragon Child," he yelled. "Contact the government, now." "New bounty to be issued," a din-din mushy squawked, relaying the message up the chain. In that instant, Naruto's life changed. Unseen hands began scribbling his wanted poster, the ink still wet as the world's eyes turned toward him. The battle raged for hours. Ships burned, the ocean littered with wreckage. The Bloodbeard captain bellowed a challenge at Whitebeard himself, only to be sent hurtling across the waves by a single quake-powered punch. With their leader down and their numbers thinning, the enemy fled, battered and broken. As the last Marine ship limped away, the Moby Dick's deck was silent but for the sound of heavy breathing and the crackle of Ace's fading flames. Naruto dropped to his knees, drained, hands shaking. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Marco approached, kneeling beside him. "You all right, you are?" Naruto nodded, wiping sweat and blood from his brow. "I'm fine, just tired." Ace clapped him on the back. "You saved my skin out there, little brother." Naruto tried to laugh, but it came out weak. His eyes drifted to a pair of crewmen helping an injured comrade, another laying a cloth over a fallen brother. The cost of victory pressed heavy on his chest. Whitebeard strode over, voice gentle in the aftermath. You did well, both of you. There's nothing more precious than family. And today you proved you'd risk everything for yours. Some of the crew eyed Naruto's fading aura with a mix of awe and unease. Marco met their gazes, nodding. He's one of us. That's all that matters. The pirates cheered, drawing Naruto and Ace into a rough embrace. The fear lingered in some eyes, but the bond was stronger. For the first time, Naruto felt the full weight of being a pirate. Not just the thrill, but the loss, the risk, and the price of loyalty. As the sun set, a battered marine messenger slipped away with a folded sheet, a fresh bounty poster. Hours later, across the world, a new wanted notice fluttered in the wind. Wanted, dead or alive, Naruto the Storm Fox, son of Whitebeard. Reward, 150 million berries. Powers, unknown. Approach with extreme caution. Naruto stared at his face on the parchment, wide-eyed. Ace whistled. Now you're officially famous. Think you can still fit through the doorway with that head? Naruto managed a grin, though a shadow of worry crept into his eyes. Guess there's no turning back now, huh? Nope, Ace said, throwing an arm around his shoulders. But we're in it together. Brothers, right? Naruto looked out at the sea, the world suddenly wider, more dangerous, and more exciting than ever. Right? Brothers. The Moby Dick sailed on, scarred but unbowed, as a new legend began to echo across the seas. The world is always listening. Within days of the battle, Naruto's new bounty was everywhere, slapped on tavern walls, fluttering in the hands of pirates, whispered about by merchants and feared by villagers. His face, grinning but with a feral spark in his blue eyes, stared back from countless posters. Wanted, dead or alive. Naruto the Storm Fox, son of Whitebeard. For some, the bounty brought excitement. On islands loyal to Whitebeard, Naruto was greeted as a hero, children following him and Ace down the streets, asking for stories or daring each other to touch his wild blonde hair. Old men at the docks would clap him on the shoulder and say, "We knew you'd be famous, kid." Whitebeard's sons are all legends. But elsewhere, the whispers changed. In markets and shadowed corners, Naruto heard new words: celestial dragon, demon child, dangerous. Some shopkeepers eyed the red mark on his shoulder and shooed him away, terrified that harboring him would bring a marine raid or worse. In one town, a slime merchant tried to hire Naruto as a bodyguard, promising safety for a price, and boasting to everyone who would listen, "I have the son of Whitebeard on my side." Naruto refused, embarrassed and frustrated, but the rumor spread. One night, after another long day of side eyes and pointed fingers, Naruto sat alone at the edge of the dock, legs dangling over dark water. He stared at his reflection, the white sash fluttering around his forehead and the mark on his shoulder burning like a brand. What am I, really? Pirate? Monster? Just someone's tool? He hugged his knees, wishing the questions would drift away with the tide. Footsteps approached. Ace dropped down beside him, arms looped around his knees. For a while, they just listened to the creak of the ship and the distant laughter of their crew. "Long face, huh?" Ace finally said, nudging him. "You look like someone just stole your whole stash of ramen." Naruto snorted, but didn't smile. "People keep looking at me weird. Some are scared. Some want to use me. And the bounty, I thought it would feel good. Like I finally belong." He shook his head, voice small. "But I just feel lost." Ace was quiet for a moment, then flicked Naruto's forehead, gentle but firm. "You idiot. Who cares what they think? You belong with us. Here." He gestured back at the glowing windows of the Moby Dick. "We're pirates, not saints. We've all got pasts, secrets, stuff we're not proud of. But the only thing that matters is what you do now, who you choose to be." Naruto looked at Ace, searching for doubt or fear, but found only a brother's stubborn faith. "But what if I mess up? What if I'm not strong enough to protect everyone?" Ace grinned. "Then you get back up. That's what pirates do. That's what Whitebeard taught us." As if summoned by his name, Whitebeard's massive shadow stretched across the dock. He joined them, sitting with surprising care for a man his size, the boards creaking but holding strong. He gazed out at the sea, eyes reflecting the stars. "Trouble on your mind, brat?" he rumbled. Naruto nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "Why do people care so much about names? About blood? I didn't choose to be a celestial dragon's son. I didn't ask for this power." Whitebeard chuckled, a deep, thunderous sound, but warm. "Neither did I, Naruto. When I was young, people feared me too. Not for a mark, but for what I could do. The world called me a monster. Said the will of D was a curse. He tapped his chest, where his heart thudded like a drum. But Oyaji Roger, he taught me something important. The will you carry matters more than the name you wear. The world will always have opinions. What you do is up to you. He looked at Naruto, serious now. The will of D, the fire inside you, the mark of the gods. None of it means anything if you don't decide what it stands for. Your destiny is yours to write, brat. Naruto swallowed hard, the words burning into his soul. He remembered every time the crew had cheered him, every time Ace had stuck up for him, every smile from Marco or lecture from Thatch. He stood, drawing a deep breath. Then I'll decide. I'll be Naruto, not just a son of Whitebeard, not a celestial dragon, not a monster. Just me. I'll use this power to protect my family. And I'll make the name mean something good. Whitebeard's grin split the darkness, pride blazing in his eyes. That's the spirit. That's what it means to be my son. Ace stood too, slinging an arm around Naruto's neck. And if anyone gives you trouble, they'll have to answer to me. Naruto laughed, the heaviness in his chest lifting. Together, they walked back to the ship, the light of home waiting. The world might judge, fear, or even hate him. But as long as he had his family, his real family, Naruto knew he'd never lose his way. As the Moby Dick sailed on beneath the endless stars, a new sense of resolve burned in Naruto's heart. His name was his own, and he'd make sure the world never forgot it. Night wrapped the Moby Dick in a tapestry of gold lanterns and rolling laughter. The air shimmered with music, the sweet tang of rum, and the scent of a feast thrown in Naruto's honor. The mess hall overflowed with pirates, some dancing on tables, some arm wrestling, most shouting their toasts above the din. Naruto was in the center of it all, cheeks flushed with pride, his mini division crowded around him. Thatch piled his plate high with skewered meats. Marco clapped him on the back, so hard his ribs rattled. Even Jozu, stoic as always, grinned and offered a tankard. "You did good, Naruto," Marco said, raising his cup. "First mission, and you didn't sink the island. I'm impressed you are." Naruto beamed, mouth full of food. "Told you I'd make Oyaji proud." Across the room, Ace watched with a fond smirk, quietly competing with Luffy to see who could eat more dumplings. It was the kind of night that made you forget the world was anything but safe. But shadows always lingered where the light was brightest. At the edge of the festivities, a solitary figure nursed a drink, sharp eyes glinting beneath the brim of his hat. Marshal D. Teach, Blackbeard to those who knew the pirate world's darker corners, smiled as he listened to the rowdy celebration. Teach watched Naruto closely, his gaze lingering on every strange spark of red chakra and every display of raw strength. When Naruto joked about splitting a log with a single punch, Teach's smile only widened. He pulled aside a greenhorn crewman, voice low. "So, the brat's got some real juice, eh? The kind no devil fruit can explain." The rookie shrugged, eager to gossip. "That's what the stories say. Oyaji trusts him. Some say he's got a demon inside. Not that anyone would say that to his face." Teach grunted. "Interesting, real interesting." He sipped his drink, plans already spinning in his mind. And the old man still hasn't shown all his power either. He slipped into the shadows, blending with the night. Few noticed he was gone. Later, as the feast wound down and the younger pirates dozed off in corners, Naruto found himself outside, gazing at the moon-dappled sea. The cool air hummed with distant voices and the creak of rigging. He felt a strange prickle, like eyes watching him from somewhere unseen. For a moment, his hand hovered over the mark on his shoulder, a chill threading down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling of something shifting, something dangerous, just out of sight. Ace appeared beside him, balancing on the railing with lazy grace. "Couldn't sleep? Or just hiding from Thatch's victory song?" Naruto snorted. "If I hear that chorus one more time, I might jump overboard." He grew quiet, staring at the stars. "Ace, do you ever get the feeling something's coming? Something big?" Ace glanced at him, expression suddenly serious. "Sometimes. The Grand Line's like that. Always a bigger storm over the next wave." Naruto nodded, jaw set. "I want to protect everyone here. No matter what's coming, I won't let anything tear this family apart." Ace slung an arm over his shoulders. "That's the spirit. As long as we stick together, there's nothing we can't handle." Back inside, Whitebeard called for silence, the room quieting at a wave of his hand. He stood, larger than life, his voice booming with pride. "Tonight, we celebrate a new star among my sons. Naruto, your courage, your heart, and your fire have made me proud. You showed the world what it means to be family." He lifted his cup high. "To Naruto, and to all who sail under this flag." The crew erupted in cheers, banging fists on tables, the air thick with love and belonging. Naruto, eyes wide and shining, looked up at his captain, his father, and felt something settle deep in his chest. This was home. This was his family. As the night wore on and the world spun quietly under 1,000 stars, Naruto slipped away one last time to the prow of the ship. The horizon glowed faintly, hinting at new adventures just beyond reach. He clenched his fists, remembering every lesson, every scar, every moment that had shaped him. He knew the seas ahead would be rough, that danger was lurking, hidden in shadows, that some enemies were the same flag as his own. But with the will of fire burning inside him, the sash of Whitebeard's crew tied around his brow, and the love of his brothers behind him, Naruto faced the future without fear. "I'll protect this family," he whispered, voice steady as the tide. No matter what. Somewhere in the darkness, Blackbeard smiled. The storm was coming, but for now, the world belonged to the next generation. End of arc. Early Whitebeard pirate adventures. The Grand Line skies were a brilliant, endless blue as the Moby Dick coasted into the bustling port of Balsa Town. Markets spilled over with color, dockworkers hollered over the clamor, and ships of every flag bobbed in the gentle surf. The Whitebeard pirates drew stares wherever they went, some of awe, some of fear, but all respectful as the world's most famous family set foot on land. Naruto practically bounced down the gangplank, ace in tow. Marco and Thatch shouted reminders not to get into trouble. "Yua, I'm watching you." But the brothers were already swept up in the town's sights and smells. Vendors hawked skewered meat and sweet buns. Children darted between crates, and somewhere, a band played a Johnny tune. Naruto stopped short, eyes going wide. A flash of red vest, a battered straw hat, and a familiar, wild laugh drifted through the crowd. "No way," Naruto whispered. Before Ace could react, a black-haired whirlwind barreled into them both, arms flailing, mouth already open. "Us. Naruto. Meet. Wait, is that really you?" "Luffy," Ace roared, catching his little brother in a crushing hug. Naruto dove in, making it a three-way pileup that sent all of them rolling across the dusty street, laughing so hard they couldn't breathe. When they finally untangled, a fourth figure approached, taller, blonde hair, a scar over one eye, and a soft smile. "You guys never change," Sabo said, dropping to a crouch. "Honestly, this island isn't ready for the four of us together." "Sabo," Naruto cheered, launching himself into another hug. For a moment, it was as if no time had passed since their wild childhoods on Dawn Island. Bystanders gawked as the four legendary brothers, now famous across the seas, made fools of themselves in the middle of the square. They ended up at a rowdy open-air tavern, commandeering a table that groaned beneath mountains of food. Luffy inhaled half a roast boar before anyone else even grabbed a plate. Ace and Sabo traded stories of sky islands, sea kings, and impossible escapes, while Naruto tried to one-up them all. And then, get this, Marco actually had to chase me halfway up the mast because I bet I could fly without his devil fruit. Ace cackled. "Did you fall?" Naruto puffed up. "Only a little. Landed on Jozu. He's basically a mattress anyway." The four brothers fell into their old rhythm, mocking, bragging, daring, and of course, eating. Every so often, curious townsfolk peered at their table, whispering about bounties and rumors. Luffy slapped down a wanted poster. "Look, my bounty went up again. They called me a menace to public order. Isn't that awesome?" Ace rolled his eyes but smiled. "You're still behind Naruto. The Storm Fox is at 150 million. Maybe if you stopped picking fights with admirals, you'd catch up." Naruto grinned, waggling his own poster. "Don't worry, Luffy. I'm still the better-looking one." Sabo laughed, raising his mug. "We're all troublemakers now, huh? Maybe we should start a club. Most wanted brothers on the Grand Line." They clinked cups, the bond of brotherhood stronger than steel. Of course, chaos was never far behind. When Luffy accidentally knocked over a mountain of fruit at the market, the brothers found themselves chased by a mob of angry vendors. Sabo tried to reason with them. Ace set off a minor fire, which Luffy put out by flinging watermelons, and Naruto, determined to help, ended up tripping over his own feet, sending the four tumbling into a fountain. Soaked, sticky with fruit juice, and howling with laughter, the four finally escaped to the docks, collapsing in a heap. Even the angry shopkeepers couldn't keep a straight face when they saw their would-be menaces reduced to a soggy pile of brothers. As the sun set, casting orange fire over the port, they lay side by side, breathing hard. "Hey," Luffy said, gazing at the sky, "we should do this every year. Just meet up, cause some trouble, then eat until we explode. Deal?" Ace agreed, his voice soft for once. "As long as we all make it." This sea's only getting crazier. Sabo looked at each of them, pride and worry mingling in his eyes. "The world's changing. Revolution's coming. Maybe sooner than we think. Promise you'll look out for each other, no matter what." Naruto stared at the horizon, feeling the weight and hope of it all. "We will. I want to see a world where we can sail wherever we want, without fear. Where nobody's born chained." The others nodded, and for a moment, there was only the sound of the waves, the wind, and dreams too big for any one crew. From a distance, Whitebeard watched the four, leaning against a barrel, arms folded, a rare soft smile on his lips. Marco joined him, wings folded behind his back. "There's something, huh, Yaji?" Marco said quietly. Whitebeard rumbled his agreement. "Aye, that's the next age right there. Fire, wind, freedom. They'll shake the world to its bones, those brats." He watched Naruto laugh with his brothers, and for a moment, Whitebeard saw not just suns, but the promise of a new dawn on the sea. Night fell, and the brothers parted ways with hugs, inside jokes, and fresh bounties to show off. Naruto stood at the prow of the Moby Dick, the wind whipping his hair, Ace by his side. "You think we'll really change anything?" Naruto asked, voice low. Ace smiled, tired but certain. "We already have, Naruto. We already have." Above them, the stars burned brighter than ever. Balsa Town's peaceful evening was shattered by the thunder of cannon fire. The ground trembled as a hulking ship, black as midnight and twice as menacing, forced its way into the harbor. Its prow was carved into the snarling maw of a lion, and a crimson flag snapped overhead, a warlord's mark known and feared across the Grand Line. From the chaos on the docks, a voice boomed. "This island belongs to the Red Lion pirates now. Surrender or be crushed." Panic swept through the townsfolk. Merchants abandoned their stalls. Children ducked for cover. Even the local garrison quaked as armored brutes poured ashore, swinging cutlasses and shouting threats. Naruto, Ace, Luffy, and Sabo had just finished drying their clothes in the last rays of sunlight when the first explosion echoed across the town. The four brothers exchanged looks. No words needed. Ace cracked his knuckles, flames licking at his skin. Luffy grinned, stretching his arms with a snap. Sabo slipped on his battered top hat and gave Naruto a nod. "Let's go. Time to show them what happens when you threaten our friends." They sprinted into the fray, Ace leading with a column of fire that forced the enemy pirates to scatter. Luffy bounced above the rooftops, arms and legs stretching as he scooped up cowering townsfolk and carried them to safety. Sabo dove into the heart of the chaos, pipe in hand, fending off attackers with precise, elegant strikes. Naruto surged alongside them, his presence a storm of energy and resolve. The Red Lion captain, an enormous man with a golden mane and a cruel grin, spotted the commotion. "Who dares defy me?" Ace stepped forward, flames swirling around his fist. "You're not taking this island. Not while we're here." The captain sneered, drawing a massive cutlass. "You and what army?" Naruto grinned, white sash fluttering. "This one." He glanced at Luffy and Sabo. "Brothers, let's show him how pirates work together." The battle erupted. Ace's flames roared, driving a wedge through the enemy ranks. Luffy's arms whipped through the crowd, disarming pirates and knocking them into barrels. Sabo spun through the melee, his pipe a blur, disabling foes with efficient blows. Naruto faced a group of thugs twice his size. They jeered, "What's a little fox gonna do?" He answered with a wild grin and a burst of chakra, a swirling vortex of wind knocking them off their feet. "You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us," Naruto shouted, voice ringing above the chaos. A few Red Lion pirates regrouped, cornering a family in a burning alley. Luffy saw them and called, "Naruto, cover me." Naruto nodded, planting himself between the pirates and the townspeople, red energy flickering around him as he blocked blow after blow. Luffy rocketed overhead, Goma Goma no Gatling, sending the last of the thugs flying. Ace took on the Red Lion captain himself. Their fight scorched the docks, fire and steel clashing in a furious dance. Sabo intercepted pirates trying to flank Ace, fighting back-to-back with his brother. But it was Naruto, seeing the captain's henchmen trying to sneak up from behind, who brought everyone together. Luffy left. Sabo, watch Ace's back. Naruto shouted, voice commanding and clear. For a split second, all three brothers moved as one. Sabo's pipe intercepted a thrown dagger meant for Ace. Luffy's rubber body shielded Naruto from a crashing crate. Ace let loose a final burst of fire, engulfing the captain's sword and shattering it. The Red Lion captain roared in outrage. Brats, you think you can stop me? Naruto stepped forward, eyes blazing. We're more than brothers. We're a crew, and we protect what's important. He drew in a deep breath, letting his chakra swirl around him. The energy crackled in the air, joining with Ace's fire, Luffy's laughter, and Sabo's calm focus. The townspeople watched in awe, hearts pounding. With a final shout, together, the four brothers charged as one. Ace's flames, Naruto's wind, Luffy's fists, and Sabo's pipe struck the captain in perfect harmony. The attack sent him crashing through the wreckage of his own ship, which promptly began to sink. Silence fell, broken only by the groan of splintered wood and the relieved sobs of the rescued townsfolk. The Red Lion pirates, defeated and leaderless, scrambled to flee. The people of Balsa town rushed forward, cheering their saviors. Children crowded around, begging for stories. The mayor, a burly man with tears in his eyes, bowed to the brothers. You've saved us, he said. Not just from pirates, but from fear. Thank you. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, a little embarrassed. We just did what pirates do. Look out for our friends. Luffy raised a fist, grinning wide. I'm hungry again. Anyone got meat? Ace and Sabo both laughed, and soon the whole town echoed with joy. The brothers' teamwork, so wild and different, had inspired everyone. Later, as the brothers stood together on the pier, the sunset painting the waves gold, Sabo spoke quietly. You know, we're not just making names for ourselves. We're giving people hope. Naruto smiled, feeling the truth of it settle in his chest. That's what being a pirate should mean. For that night, at least, the world felt a little brighter, and the legend of four brothers, united under the same sky, grew even greater. End of arc. Brotherhood. There was an unfamiliar tension on the Moby Dick, subtle at first, like the hush before a storm. The crew kept busy, patching sails, sharpening blades, tending to bruises, but beneath the noise was a current of unease. Naruto felt it in the way laughter faded faster, in how commanders talked in low voices when they thought no one was listening. Even Whitebeard, who never missed a thing, seemed heavier, more contemplative than usual. Naruto had grown into his role as a young commander, his division looking to him not just for orders, but for hope. Yet now, when he tried to rally the crew, a shadow crept in behind his words. Even Ace seemed distracted, spending late nights in conversation with Marco and Jozu. The reason for the tension had a name: Teach. Blackbeard, once just another son of Whitebeard, now a man whose ambitions had begun to outgrow his place in the family. He kept to himself these days, lurking in the ship's deeper corridors, eyes glinting with secrets. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, Marco found Naruto on the main deck, staring into the restless sea. You feel it too, Iwa? Marco asked, leaning on the rail beside him. Naruto nodded, jaw set. The crew's on edge. Something's wrong. Marco's gaze was distant. Teach has been asking questions. About Oyaji. About devil fruits. About you. He paused, lowering his voice. No one's seen him at mealtime for days. When he does show up, he just watches. And that smile gives me chills. Naruto's fists clenched. You think he's planning something? I don't know. But keep your division close, and keep an eye on Ace. If anything happens, you get them to Whitebeard. Promise me. Naruto met Marco's serious gaze and nodded. I promise. The next morning shattered the uneasy calm. Naruto woke to shouting from below deck. He raced down, Ace and several commanders already ahead of him. At the heart of the commotion lay Thatch, 4th Division commander, brave and boisterous, slumped in a pool of blood. His hand still gripped a half-eaten apple, its core glowing with unnatural power. Naruto's heart hammered. No. Thatch. Marco knelt, checking for a pulse, but it was too late. The apple rolled from Thatch's hand, bouncing once before a young recruit caught it. Everyone stared at the fruit, spiral patterns now winding through its skin. A devil fruit, Marco whispered, voice tight with anger. Josu arrived, face grim. Someone did this for the fruit. Who was on watch? The answer came in a rush. Crewman after crewman reporting that Teach had last been seen sneaking below deck, eyes wild. One found a torn scrap of Teach's coat, bloody at the sleeve. Another, a missing rowboat. Naruto's anger burned. Blackbeard. He killed Thatch and ran. The truth was undeniable. Betrayal cut deeper than any sword. The Moby Dick, always noisy and full of life, now rang with stunned silence. Ace's face was white with rage. I'll find him. He's my responsibility. I brought him to the crew. Marco's hand shot out, grabbing Ace's arm. You're not going alone. Naruto stepped forward, voice raw. We're going together. No way we let him get away with this. But Whitebeard, who had arrived in silence, shook his head, the weight of grief bowing his massive frame. No, Ace, Naruto, Marco, this isn't just revenge. Teach has chosen a path none of us can follow. But you, my sons, must be smarter. Promise me you won't throw your lives away for vengeance. Ace's jaw tightened. I promise, Oyaji. But I can't. No, I won't. Let him get away. I'll bring him to justice. Whitebeard's gaze softened with pride and sorrow. That's my son. In the days that followed, the Moby Dick mourned Thatch. The crew honored his memory with songs and stories, but their grief was laced with fear. If one of their own could turn traitor, what else was possible? Naruto found himself struggling, angry at Teach, furious at fate, and most of all, blaming himself for not seeing it sooner. That night, Naruto stood at the stern, looking up at the stars. Ace joined him, silent for a while. I keep thinking, if I just noticed sooner. If I'd talked to Teach, maybe. Ace shook his head. Don't. This isn't on us. Teach made his choice. Naruto's voice was small. Still, he was one of us. I thought family meant something to everyone here. Ace put a hand on his shoulder. It means something to us. And that's why we have to stop him, before he tears our family apart any more than he already has. They stood together, silent, letting the night wind carry their promise. Far from the ship, in the darkness of a jungle on a lonely island, Blackbeard laughed, a new devil fruit shining in his palm. He bit into it, power crackling through him, eyes wild with hunger for more. Just the beginning, he muttered, already plotting his next move. By week's end, Whitebeard gathered his sons on the deck, lantern light casting long shadows. Teach's betrayal won't be the last test we face, but we stand as family, and we will weather every storm. Naruto, Ace, I trust you, but don't let anger blind you to what matters most. Naruto nodded, resolve hardening inside him. I'll protect this family, no matter what. The crew roared their support, old wounds temporarily soothed by shared strength. As the moon rose high, Naruto looked out at the endless sea, aware, for the first time, that their world was about to change forever. Shadows deepened, but so did his resolve. Whatever it took, he would not let Teach or anyone else destroy what Whitebeard had built. In the darkness, a single star shot across the sky, a silent promise that even when the shadows lengthen, hope can still burn bright. The hunt for Blackbeard began before dawn. There was no grand speech, no swelling music, just the cold certainty that a traitor walked free and a family needed justice. Ace, Naruto, and a hand-picked crew slipped away from the Moby Dick on a fast sloop, their hearts heavy with grief and determination. Naruto stood at the bow, wind whipping through his hair, eyes fixed on the horizon. Every island they visited carried new rumors, stories of a man with a grin like a shark, a darkness trailing in his wake, and the death of anyone foolish enough to cross his path. Blackbeard was always one step ahead, but the brothers pressed on, hope burning in their chests like a second sun. They chased clues through pirate bars and lawless coves. In one battered tavern, a barkeep shivered as he slid them a torn map. He was asking about the strongest, about the Storm Fox, about you, Naruto. Said the world was too small for Whitebeard's brats. The crew's grip tightened on their swords, but Ace nodded thanks and pressed onward, eyes burning with purpose. On the third night, they landed on Betrayal Island, a bleak, windswept place. The village was abandoned, windows shuttered, the air thick with tension. Naruto's senses prickled. The earth here seemed wrong, like something had poisoned it. Stay sharp, Ace muttered, scanning the shadows. A cold laugh echoed from the ruined church at the island's heart. Well, Well, looks like my old brother's finally caught up. Blackbeard emerged from the darkness, a massive figure draped in a stolen coat, a devil fruit gleaming in one hand. Behind him, his own ragtag crew fanned out, faces twisted in anticipation. Ace Naruto. Teach's smile was as wide as a wound. I knew you'd come. Too bad you brought the runt with you. Maybe you should have left him on the ship with the rest of Whitebeard's lapdogs. Naruto stepped forward, chakra rippling beneath his skin. You betrayed your family, Teach. You killed Thatch. We're not leaving here without you. Blackbeard sneered. That's the pirate life, boy. Power's all that matters. The age of Whitebeard is over. It's my turn now. Ace's fists blazed with fire. You'll answer for what you've done. The battle erupted in an instant. Ace's flames lit up the night, searing through the ruins as he clashed with Blackbeard, fire against darkness. Teach laughed, his new devil fruit letting him swallow Ace's fire with a vortex of pure blackness. Yami Yami, Nomi's fearsome power on full display. Naruto led the charge against the rest of Blackbeard's crew, his chakra swirling like a tempest. He moved with the speed and fury of a storm, landing blows that sent enemies flying. But Teach's men fought dirty, pulling knives and pistols, using every cheap trick they knew. Naruto's division held the line, but Blackbeard's power distorted the very ground, sucking up debris, snuffing out light. Naruto watched, horrified, as Teach nullified Ace's flames again and again, and for the first time, Ace's confidence faltered. Ace, Naruto called, hurling a Rasengan of red-tinged chakra that struck Teach in the chest, staggering him. Blackbeard staggered, coughing blood, but only grinned wider. You've got some tricks, Fox Boy, but you're not the one the world wants. It's your brother. It's always been Ace. With a swipe of his darkness, he caught Ace off guard, pinning him with gravity's crushing pull. Naruto rushed forward, but Blackbeard's crew intercepted, slamming him to the ground. His vision blurred as fists rained down. He could barely see Ace, struggling, pride keeping him from calling for help. Give up, Teach. Ace roared, still defiant. You'll never break us. Blackbeard snarled, darkness coiling around his arm. No, but the world will. The Marines want you alive, Ace. And I want my ticket to the top. He slammed Ace into the dirt, shackles of blackness forming around his wrists. The ground trembled as Blackbeard signaled his crew. Flares shot up into the night sky, summoning the Marines waiting offshore. Naruto broke free with a burst of chakra, desperate, but it was too late. Marines in crisp uniforms flooded the ruins, rifles and sea-stone cuffs at the ready. Vice Admiral Garp himself strode forward, sorrow and resolve warring in his eyes. Stand down, Naruto. Garp called, voice thunderous. It's over. Don't throw your life away for Ace. Naruto ignored him, rushing to Ace's side. I'm not leaving you, brother. Not ever. Ace, battered but still smiling, shook his head. Naruto, don't be stupid. You can't help me now. Save yourself. Tell Oyaji, tell everyone. I'm not sorry. Blackbeard handed Ace over to the Marines, his smile cold and victorious. Enjoy your glory, Ace. Your execution will shake the world. Naruto lunged again, but Garp stepped between them, face carved from stone. Enough, Naruto. If you fight now, you'll only die too. Naruto's rage boiled over. His chakra exploded in a burst of crimson, throwing off Marines left and right. But Garp's fist caught him in the gut, knocking the wind from his lungs. He slumped, helpless, as Ace was dragged away, shackles biting deep. Ace! Naruto screamed, tears streaming down his face. Ace! The Marines marched Ace to their ship, banners snapping in the wind. Blackbeard vanished into the shadows, his laughter echoing like a curse. Naruto knelt in the rubble, the world spinning, pain and guilt crashing over him. His division gathered around him, silent and broken. I'm sorry, Naruto whispered. I'm so sorry. The hunt had ended, but the true battle was only beginning. As dawn broke, the news of Ace's capture would ripple across the seas, setting into motion a war that would shake the world to its core, and Naruto's resolve was forged anew, harder and brighter than steel. No matter what it took, he would not let his family fall. The news swept across the seas faster than any ship. Fire Fist Ace, son of Whitebeard, captured by the Marines, scheduled for public execution at Marineford. By morning, every pirate, merchant, and king from paradise to the New World knew that the age was about to shift. On the Moby Dick, The shock hit like a tidal wave. Naruto returned to the ship battered and hollow-eyed. The crew gathered as he climbed aboard, his uniform torn, fists clenched so tight his knuckles bled. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, sacred. As Naruto stood before Whitebeard and Marco, every pair of eyes locked on him. He fell to his knees. "I'm sorry. I failed him. I failed all of you." Whitebeard's shadow fell over him, immense and steady. For a moment, Naruto braced for anger or disappointment. Instead, Whitebeard knelt, setting a massive hand on his shoulder. "No, Naruto. You fought as hard as any man could. This is not your burden alone. Ace's fate is a wound to us all." Marco's voice, though gentle, was edged with pain. "You did everything you could. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have made it back at all, Yua." Naruto squeezed his eyes shut. The memory replayed in his mind. Ace shackled and beaten, Garp's stone face, Blackbeard's triumphant laughter. It was a nightmare he couldn't shake. "He's going to die," Naruto whispered, voice breaking. "They'll kill him, just to send a message." Whitebeard's eyes, stormy with grief and fury, burned bright. "Not while I draw breath. We are Whitebeard's sons. No one takes our family without a fight." News spread like wildfire. In taverns and hideouts, pirates roared with outrage or glee. The supernovas whispered of opportunity. The 7 warlords were summoned by the world government. Marines all over the world prepared for battle. Somewhere on the Grand Line, Luffy stood frozen in the rain, reading the wanted notice for Ace, mouth open in horror. His fist trembled. No, Ace, Sabo, elsewhere, heard the news from a revolutionary den. His heart clenched, fire returning to his eyes. "I won't let another brother die." Pirate crews who owed debts to Whitebeard began to move. Old friends and bitter rivals alike debated what side to take. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. On the Moby Dick, the crew fell into a rhythm that was grim, purposeful, and silent. Every man sharpened blades, loaded cannons, checked supplies. Ships that had sailed apart for years now converged. Whitebeard's entire fleet, 100 banners flying. Naruto watched it all, feeling like a ghost among the living. At night, he wandered the deck, unable to sleep. His thoughts spun. Guilt, grief, fear, and, slowly, something harder, brighter, and more focused. He remembered Ace's words. "Don't be stupid. You can't help me now. Save yourself. Tell Oyaji, tell everyone. I'm not sorry." He remembered Whitebeard's hand on his shoulder. "This is not your burden alone." He remembered his own vow. "I'll protect this family, no matter what." One evening, as the sky bled purple and gold, Marco found Naruto sitting alone at the bow, eyes fixed on the horizon. Marco sat beside him, wings folded. "You haven't eaten, Yua. Crew's worried about you." Naruto said nothing for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but sure. "It should have been me. I should have been the one captured. I have this power, the fox, the chakra, everything Whitebeard gave me. But I couldn't save him. What kind of brother am I?" Marco was silent for a moment, then said, "The kind who would have died for him. The kind who fought until he had nothing left. You're not alone, Naruto. None of us are." Naruto's throat tightened. "I want to believe that. But Ace, he's my family. He's all of our family. If we lose him, if I let Teach win," his fist shook. "I can't let that happen. I have to be stronger." Marco smiled gently. "Then get stronger. Not for revenge, not for guilt. For the family that needs you now. We're going to war, Naruto. We need you with us. The world needs to see what the next generation can do." In the captain's quarters, Whitebeard gathered his commanders. Maps were spread across the table, lines and arrows tracing a plan to invade Marineford itself, the heart of the world government. Jozu slammed a fist down. "It's suicide. The admirals, the warlords, the whole navy will be there." Vista nodded. "But if anyone can do it, it's us. Oyaji, say the word." Whitebeard's gaze swept the room, fierce and proud. "They think they can break us. They forget what it means to have family worth dying for." He looked at Naruto, eyes twinkling. "I see the will of fire in every one of you. Ace will not die alone. We will move as one, and the world will remember the day they challenged Whitebeard." Naruto felt something shift inside, a weight lifting, resolve igniting. "I'm with you, Oyaji. No matter what." On distant winds, word reached allies and enemies alike. Whitebeard was coming. Pirate crews began to move, some for glory, some for revenge, some just to see the world change. Revolutionary ships slipped quietly through the dark, their leaders grim and ready. Luffy, fists clenched, set his hat low and pointed the Going Merry toward Marineford. "Wait for me, Ace. I'm coming." At Marineford, the world's strongest warriors gathered. The admirals, Akiji, Kizaru, and Akainu, prepared. The 7 warlords assembled. Sengoku gave his final orders. Ace, chained in a lonely cell, lifted his head as the guards whispered of the coming storm. For the first time since his capture, he smiled. "Naruto, don't let me down." Night fell on the Moby Dick. The crew, once rowdy, now united in shared purpose, sat together, weapons in hand. Naruto joined them, face set, eyes clear. He moved among his brothers, offering a word, a nod, a smile. He felt their strength echo in his bones. For the first time since Ace's capture, he let hope flicker in his chest. As the moon rose, Whitebeard stood on the deck and raised his great bicento. "This is our time," he boomed. "We sail at dawn, not just for Ace, but for every son and daughter of this crew. We fight for our family, for freedom, and for the new age that comes after. The world will tremble at our step." The crew roared, a wave of voices crashing across the sea. Naruto stood tall, the white sash of his family fluttering, the fox's chakra alive beneath his skin. He thought of Ace, of Luffy and Sabo, of every friend and brother he'd found on these waters. No matter what awaited them at Marineford, Naruto knew who he was now. He was Whitebeard's son. He was a brother. And he would never let family fall again. The war was coming. The dawn before war was unlike any other. The air crackled with anticipation. Sails snapped in the breeze as ship after ship converged on a hidden cove far from the eyes of the world government. The Whitebeard pirates, scattered across the seas for years, now gathered as one. The Moby Dick anchored at the cove's heart. Around her, 100 ships flew the Whitebeard Jolly Roger, old allies, pirates who owed debts, even a handful of outlaws drawn by the promise of a battle that would decide the fate of the era. Campfires glowed across the shore as pirates made last-minute repairs, sharpened swords, and sang old songs to keep the fear at bay. Naruto moved through the bustle, no longer just the mischievous son of Whitebeard, but now a commander, his mini-division at his heels, faces young and determined. He offered encouragement where he could, checked supplies, and settled disputes with a word or a slap on the back. He paused at a campfire, where Jinbei, the whale shark fisherman and Whitebeard's ally, crouched with a map spread across his lap. "You've come far, Naruto," Jinbei said, voice deep as the sea itself. "But this war will test you like nothing else." Naruto nodded. "I know, but we're ready. We have to be. Ace is waiting, and so is the whole world." Jinbei regarded him for a moment, then gave a rare smile. "The will of fire burns strong in you, boy. Never let it go out." On the far edge of the cove, Marco and Jozu met with captains of allied crews, old rivals who had become brothers in arms for this one impossible cause. Vista, ever the swordsman, drilled a fresh batch of recruits, his laughter masking the tension in his eyes. Naruto slipped away to the edge of the cliff, overlooking the armada. He watched the horizon for a sign, anything from Luffy or Sabo, or any friend that might yet come. The sea was empty, save for the gulls circling above and the morning sun turning the waves to molten gold. A small boat cut through the surf, carrying a familiar straw hat and a scarred, blonde revolutionary. Naruto's heart skipped. He raced down the cliff and nearly tackled Luffy and Sabo as they leapt ashore. "Oi, Naruto." Luffy laughed, throwing his arms around his brother. "We came just like we promised." Sabo grinned, clapping Naruto on the back. "The revolutionaries are moving too. The world's about to change, Naruto, and we'll be fighting right beside you." Naruto's relief was overwhelming. "Thank you, both of you." Jinbei appeared, bowing to the new arrivals. "Straw Hat, Sabo, Whitebeard will be glad to know you're here." Later, under the great flag at the center of camp, Whitebeard assembled his sons, commanders, and allies. The old man's presence alone commanded the silence. His voice, when it came, rolled like thunder across the sea. "Today, we gather not as pirates, but as family. They have taken one of ours, my son, your brother. The world government believes they can frighten us into silence, but they have forgotten the strength of a man who fights for his own." He looked from face to face, Vista, Jozu, Marco, Jinbei, Naruto, and all the rest. "We fight for more than just Ace. We fight for every soul who calls these seas home. We fight for the right to live free, without chains, without fear. The pirates cheered, voices lifting in a wave that shook the palm trees. Whitebeard stepped aside, and Marco addressed the fleet. This will not be easy, Yua. Marineford is the world's fortress. The admirals, the warlords, and the entire navy will be waiting. But remember, there is nothing more dangerous than a family united. Naruto found himself at the front of his division, their eyes on him. He swallowed his nerves, then let his voice ring out. No matter what, we stand together. We fight for Ace, for Oyaji, and for every one of us. If you're afraid, that's fine, so am I. But we'll turn that fear into strength. The youngest pirates laughed, some cheered, some even cried, but they all stood a little taller. As the sun began to set, preparations reached a fever pitch. Sabo and Naruto sat together on the gunwale, feet dangling above the water. You ready for this? Sabo asked, searching Naruto's face. Naruto nodded. I don't know if anyone can ever be ready, but Ace needs us. I won't let him down, and I won't let anyone take my family away. Not the world government, not Blackbeard, not anyone. Sabo grinned, that fire in his eyes. That's what I wanted to hear. Jinbei approached, laying a broad hand on both their shoulders. The sun will rise soon. Rest while you can, my friends. Night fell and the cove grew quiet. Every soul gathered for a final meal before the storm. Whitebeard stood at the prow of the Moby Dick, gazing out at the moonlit fleet, the weight of 1,000 lives on his shoulders. Marco and the other commanders joined him, silent and resolute. Naruto lingered just behind, feeling the energy in the air, a mix of fear, hope, and resolve. He closed his eyes and let the memories of every brother, every adventure, and every promise light the way forward. In the morning, they would sail to Marineford. The greatest battle in pirate history would begin, and Naruto, heart burning with the will of fire and the love of family, would lead his brothers into legend. The final night before Marineford was heavy with unspoken words. The cove was nearly silent now, a far cry from the wild laughter and music of nights past. Ships stood at anchor, sails furled, as if holding their breath. The Whitebeard pirates, an army that had once seemed invincible, were a family tonight, each man, woman, and child clutching memories and hopes for the dawn. Naruto sat alone on the bow of the Moby Dick, the moon reflecting off the water, making the world seem silver and fragile. He could hear the distant clatter of blades being sharpened, the low murmur of commanders as they finalized plans, and the occasional bark of laughter, too loud, too forced, from nervous young pirates. He looked down at his hands, remembering every moment that brought him here. Whitebeard's laughter, Ace's teasing, Luffy's wild dreams, Sabo's quiet strength, the crew's warmth and chaos. For all his power, chakra and devil fruit and will, Naruto had never felt so small. A gentle breeze ruffled his hair. Footsteps approached. Mind if I join you, brat? Whitebeard's voice was a rumble, softer than usual. Naruto shook his head. The old pirate settled beside him, huge and reassuring. They sat for a while in companionable silence, listening to the waves. Whitebeard finally spoke, voice tinged with weariness and pride. You remind me of Roger sometimes. Full of dreams and fire, stubborn as a storm. But you're also your own man, Naruto. You've given my sons hope, more than you know. Naruto swallowed, looking up at the stars. I'm scared, Oyaji. Not for me. For Ace. For the crew. I keep thinking, what if I'm not strong enough? Whitebeard smiled, mustache twitching. It's all right to be scared. Every man is, before a battle. Courage is fighting anyway. Family means never having to carry that fear alone. Naruto drew a shaky breath. I made a promise. To Ace. To everyone. I won't let our family fall. Whitebeard nodded, placing a massive hand on Naruto's head. Good. That's all any father can ask. Remember, no matter what happens tomorrow, you are my son. My family. Naruto blinked away tears, letting himself lean against Whitebeard's broad shoulder for a moment. Elsewhere on the ship, the crew gathered in small groups. Marco checked on the newest division, offering calm words and the rare, crooked smile that meant more than bravado. Jozu told stories of past victories, making the rookies laugh. Vista polished his swords, humming softly. Sabo and Luffy sat together at the edge of the camp, Luffy uncharacteristically quiet, his straw hat shadowing his face. You'll see Ace again soon, Sabo said, voice gentle. We'll all make it through this. Luffy nodded, determination burning in his eyes. No matter what, I'll save him. I won't lose my brother again. Naruto found them and dropped down beside them. We're all in this together. Brothers, right? Luffy grinned, hugging him tight. Brothers, always. As midnight approached, Whitebeard summoned his commanders and closest sons to the deck. The moon bathed them in a silver glow, painting every scar and smile with the light of legend. We sail at dawn, Whitebeard said, voice steady and deep. Tomorrow, the world will try to break us. But I see only strength here. I see sons and brothers ready to defy fate itself. We do not fight alone, we fight for each other. He looked to Naruto, eyes filled with something ancient and proud. No matter what happens, carry the will of this family. Carry your fire to the very end. Marco spoke up, voice strong. We're with you, Oyaji. All of us. Until the last man stands. A hush fell. Naruto felt the weight of every eye, every hope and fear, resting on him as well. For a heartbeat, he was just a boy found in a storm. Then he stood tall, white sash fluttering in the wind, voice ringing out clear. We'll protect our family, no matter what comes. For Ace, for Oyaji, for everyone who believes in us. The world will remember tomorrow, not just for a war, but for the love we fight with. The crew erupted in cheers and applause. Every voice joined as one. Later, as the world slept, Naruto stood once more at the rail, the lights of 100 ships glittering in the darkness. The horizon looked impossibly far, and yet, he felt ready. He thought of Ace, somewhere out there, waiting and hoping. He thought of his brothers, his father, and every friend he'd ever made on this wild sea. He whispered a promise to the night. Hold on, Ace. I'm coming, and I won't let you go. Not this time. A gust of wind carried his words across the waves, where they mingled with the prayers and vows of every pirate who had ever called the Moby Dick home. When the sun rose, the era would change. But tonight, for a moment longer, family was everything. End of arc, Blackbeard betrayal, and the road to Marineford. The first light of dawn spilled over Marineford, the stronghold of the world government, turning its towering white walls to gold. The air itself seemed to shudder with tension. The plaza was a fortress of order, rows upon rows of marines in crisp blue, the 3 admirals standing like living statues at the front, and the 7 warlords arrayed with their own terrifying presence. At the heart of it all, Ace knelt on the execution platform, shackles biting deep, his face proud but pale. News of the impending war had drawn every eye in the world to this single moment. From nobles in Mariawa to beggars on forgotten islands, all waited to see if the era would end or be born anew. The sea was calm. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A quake split the ocean. Tsunami waves surged, towering over the bay, Whitebeard's power announcing his arrival. Dozens of pirate ships surged forth, the Moby Dick leading the charge, its mast bearing the proud symbol of the world's greatest pirate. There he is, Marines shouted, panic rippling through their ranks. Whitebeard stood at the prow, his bicinto in hand, his sons at his back. Behind him, Naruto's heart pounded in his chest, resolve shining in his eyes. He saw Ace on the platform, his brother, his family, and every fear faded to burning purpose. Men, today, we fight for our family. Whitebeard's voice boomed across the bay, shaking even the bravest hearts. Ace, hold on, son. Cannons roared. Marines unleashed their first volley. But the pirates pressed on, crashing through barricades and leaping onto the battlefield. Naruto's division landed together, chakra surging at his call. He led the charge, blasting aside Marines with bursts of wind and red energy, his white sash streaming behind him. Around him, pirates cheered, "Go, Storm Fox!" Their courage renewed by his presence. Marco soared overhead, flames trailing from his wings. Jozu slammed aside a cannon with diamond skin. Vista clashed swords with Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman, sparks flying. In the chaos, a flash of straw hat and elastic limbs appeared. Luffy, charging straight at the wall, grinning like a man possessed. "Save Ace!" Luffy shouted, his voice cutting through the smoke. He was not alone. Sabo fought at his side, fire swirling from his pipe. "We're coming, brother," Sabo called. Naruto caught up to them in the heart of the melee, grinning despite the danger. "Glad you two could make it." Luffy beamed. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Let's break Ace out together." The 3 brothers moved as one. Naruto's chakra deflecting bullets, Sabo's fire turning swords to molten slag, Luffy's fists and feet stretching through the chaos. Together, they punched a hole in the marine line. On the execution platform, Ace looked up, eyes shining with hope for the first time since his capture. Oyaji, Naruto, Luffy, you really came for me. Sengoku, Fleet Admiral, raised a hand. Do not let them through. The world is watching. Ace must pay for his crimes. The three admirals, Akainu, Akiji, and Kizuru, stepped forward. Akainu's fists blazed with magma. I'll burn them all to ash, he snarled. Akiji froze the sea itself, ice racing to trap pirate ships. Kizaru flashed across the battlefield at the speed of light, scattering pirates with lasers. The warlords, Doflamingo, Mihawk, Kuma, Hancock, and others, waded into the chaos, power colliding with power. But Naruto's will burn brighter. He focused his chakra, weaving it with the raw determination that had carried him from a cradle in a storm to the heart of a war. A marine captain lunged for him, blade flashing. Naruto sidestepped, a tail of red chakra flickering behind him, and sent the man flying with a palm strike. He spun, calling orders. Marco, cover the left. Jozu, break the wall. Luffy, Sabo, stick with me. The brothers pressed on, every inch of ground a battlefield, every moment a heartbeat from disaster. Suddenly, a roar split the sky. A sea king, summoned by one of Whitebeard's allies, erupted from the bay, scattering marine ships and buying precious seconds. Go! Naruto shouted. Ace is waiting, but the admirals blocked their path. Kizaru's light beams rained down, forcing Naruto and Luffy to dive for cover. Akainu's magma punched through the earth, cutting off escape. Akiji, cold and cruel, tried to freeze Sabo in place. For a moment, it seemed hopeless. Naruto drew in a breath, remembering Whitebeard's words. Family means never having to carry fear alone. He let the Nine Tails chakra surge, a controlled, blazing aura that enveloped his brothers and melted the ice at their feet. Together, Naruto shouted, "We break through, no matter what." The three rushed the line, Naruto's chakra shielding them, Luffy's punches smashing aside vice admirals, Sabo's flames carving a path. Pirates rallied to them, hope surging anew. On the platform, Ace struggled, his voice carrying, "I believe in you. Don't give up." In the chaos, Blackbeard's ship lurked at the edge of the bay, his eyes glinting as he watched the tides of battle. He smiled, biding his time, waiting for the moment to strike. But for now, the world belonged to legends. The sun climbed higher, and the plaza shook with the fury of dreamers refusing to let family die. As cannon smoke drifted and the tide of war crashed higher, Naruto, Luffy, and Sabo surged ever closer to the platform. The eyes of the world were on them, and the age itself held its breath. The battle for Marineford raged with unrelenting fury. The plaza had become a maelstrom of fire, ice, smoke, and blood. Swords clashed with devil fruit powers, cannonballs shrieked overhead, and the world's strongest warriors collided beneath banners of justice and freedom. Naruto, Luffy, and Sabo drove forward through the chaos, never more than a few strides from each other. The three brothers, backed by their crews, their allies, and the desperate hope of family, had become the beating heart of the pirate charge. Everywhere Naruto looked, the cost of the fight was evident. Marco swept down in a blaze of blue fire to save fallen pirates. Jinbei hurled enemy marines aside, holding the line against a wave of pacifistas. Sabo ducked a blast from Doflamingo's strings, responding with a gout of flame that sent the warlord reeling. And Luffy, laughing, wild, undaunted, drove through the enemy with every ounce of will. At Naruto's side, his mini-division, pirates who'd grown from brash kids into trusted fighters, watched him with awe. "Stick together," Naruto called, chakra swirling. "Don't let the admirals split us up. Cover your brothers." He saw a marine captain charging a wounded crewman and was there in a flash. Red chakra blazed from his fist as he blocked the blade, sending the captain flying. "You all right?" Naruto asked the fallen pirate. The man nodded, clutching his arm. "I'll live, Commander." Naruto nodded, jaw set. There was no time for rest. Around him, the battle pressed on. On the execution platform, Ace watched, eyes wide with hope and dread. The Marines tightened their perimeter. Sengoku gave the order, "Don't let them through. Hold the line, no matter the cost." But the pirates refused to break. Whitebeard, at the front, slammed his Bicinto down, sending a quake tearing through Marineford's defenses. Cracks raced across the plaza, swallowing Marines and throwing warlords off their feet. "Push forward," he roared. For Ace. For freedom. Naruto caught the shout and answered with his own. Oyaji's with us. Let's move. Kizaru materialized in a flash of light before them, his leg drawn back for a devastating kick. Troublesome children, Kizaru drawled. You're making quite the mess. Luffy sprang forward, fist cocked. Goma Gomu no jet pistol. Kizaru flickered away at the last instant, but Naruto was ready. He focused, channeling his chakra, and a cloak of red energy flared around him. With a roar, he intercepted Kizaru's next attack, the clash lighting the plaza with sparks. Sabo joined in, flames and wind swirling together with Naruto's chakra. We can't let him slow us down. Naruto gritted his teeth, pressing forward, step by step. We do this together. Kizaru's attacks were relentless, beams of light that tore the ground apart. Naruto's chakra shield flickered with each blow, but he refused to give ground. Luffy, go high, Naruto called. Luffy grinned and launched himself above the admiral, distracting him long enough for Sabo to sweep Kizaru's legs with fire. Naruto drove in, palm glowing. Take this, Rasengan. He landed a hit. Kizaru staggered, surprised. Not bad for a brat, but the battle was far from over. Akainu surged toward Whitebeard, magma boiling in his fists. The old pirate sons rallied to protect him. Vista and Jozu held off Mihawk and the pacifistas, swords ringing in the chaos. The pirates, inspired by the courage of Naruto, Luffy, and Sabo, refused to yield. Near the plaza's edge, the revolutionaries made their move. Sabo's comrades, led by Koala and Hack, freed prisoners and struck at the Marines' flanks. For Ace, Sabo shouted, fire blazing, as he and his brothers pressed closer to the execution platform. At the heart of the battle, Naruto found himself beside Luffy and Sabo once more. Sweat poured down his face. His arms shook, but his resolve only grew. We're almost there, Naruto panted. Just a little more. A sudden scream. The Marines had cornered a group of children, too young to fight, cowering behind a fallen barricade. Naruto didn't hesitate. I'll cover you. Go. He darted into the fray, red chakra blazing, and stood between the children and a squad of Marines. If you want them, you'll have to go through me, he growled. The Marines hesitated, but one lunged forward. Naruto caught his sword, snapping it with his bare hand, then sent the man tumbling with a burst of wind. Go, Naruto shouted to the children. Get to safety. As the last child scrambled away, Sabo and Luffy reached his side, helping him clear the remaining Marines. Nice save, Sabo said, grinning. Luffy thumped Naruto on the back. That's what brothers do. The battle's tide shifted. Whitebeard's words thundered across the plaza. Family isn't just blood, it's heart. As long as we fight for each other, the world can never break us. Naruto felt the truth of it resonate in every scar, every memory. He thought of Ace, shackled and waiting, of Oyaji, refusing to yield, of every crewman who'd given everything for this chance. He clenched his fists, summoning every drop of will. For family, Naruto cried, and his power surged. A cloak of chakra blazed brighter than ever, emboldening everyone who saw it. The pirates pressed on, breaking through the final Marine barricade. Ace was in sight now, just a few steps away, but those steps were guarded by the world's strongest. As Naruto, Luffy, and Sabo drew closer, the world seemed to hold its breath. In the shadow of the execution platform, Sengoku and the admirals stood ready. Come then, Sengoku roared. Let the world see your resolve. Naruto glanced at his brothers, saw the same determination mirrored in their eyes. No matter what, he said, we save Ace, together. And as the battle for the age reached its peak, hope burned brighter than ever, forged in bonds and sacrifice. Smoke and fire choked the sky above Marineford as chaos swallowed order. The world's greatest forces clashed with such fury that the ground itself trembled. Amid the din, three brothers cut a path through the maelstrom. Naruto's chakra swirling bright red and gold, Luffy's fists flying, Sabo's fire crackling as they fought with a single purpose, to reach Ace. On the execution platform, Ace strained against his chains, heart pounding as hope and terror warred inside him. Marines and admirals braced, forming a final wall before the platform. The tide shifted with a roar. Whitebeard, wounded but unbroken, shattered another line of defense with a quake that split the plaza. Make way for my sons, he thundered, blood streaming down his chest. The opening was all they needed. Naruto, Luffy, and Sabo surged forward. Akainu moved to intercept, his fist a boiling lance of magma. "I'll incinerate you all." Naruto darted ahead, chakra exploding in a burst of speed. "You'll have to get through me first." Akainu's punch met Naruto's shield of crimson energy. For a heartbeat, magma and chakra collided, sparks and steam filling the air. Naruto gritted his teeth, remembering every lesson, every brother, every promise. "You can't break our bond. I won't let you." Sabo and Luffy flanked Akainu, hitting him from both sides. Sabo's fire met magma, buying Naruto the instant he needed. Luffy stretched his arms up to the platform, grabbing Ace's shackles. "I'm here, Ace. I'm not leaving you." Tears sprang to Ace's eyes. "You idiots, you really came." Naruto joined Luffy, focusing his chakra into a blade of wind. With a roar, he sliced through the sea stone cuffs. Sparks danced, and the shackles fell away. Ace was free. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause, pirates and marines alike transfixed by the impossible. Ace staggered, but Luffy and Naruto caught him, tears and laughter mingling. "Thanks, little brothers." Ace choked, voice trembling with gratitude and pride. "Let's get out of here," Sabo shouted, flames swirling around them. But the admirals would not yield. Akainu, enraged, surged after them. Kizaru's beams of light lanced through the air. Akiji swept in on a tide of ice. Whitebeard, battered but blazing with fury, blocked their path, Bicinto raised high. No further, he slammed the ground with the last of his strength, a quake rippling out to protect his son's retreat. But the price of victory grew steeper. Blackbeard, biding his time, at last made his move. His ship crashed through the plaza's edge as he and his new crew stormed ashore. "Zihaha, the age of Whitebeard is over." Blackbeard crowed, darkness swirling from his hands. He lunged at Whitebeard, the two titans colliding in a clash that rocked the earth. Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi devoured light and hope alike, but Whitebeard stood tall, his will unshakable even as wounds multiplied. Naruto turned, horror in his eyes. "Oyaji." Whitebeard met his gaze, a sad, proud smile on his blood-stained lips. "Go, Naruto. Go, Ace. The world needs your fire. Don't waste this chance." Naruto's heart twisted, but Ace gripped his shoulder. "We can't let his sacrifice be for nothing. Naruto, let's go." Fort Oyaji. The pirates, rallying around their leaders, charged to cover the retreat. Jinbei and Marco helped usher Ace and the brothers back to the main line, fighting every step. But Blackbeard pressed his attack. With a roar, he struck Whitebeard through the chest, dark power swirling. For a moment, it seemed the old man would fall. Then, with a final, titanic effort, Whitebeard unleashed one last quake, cracking the sea itself, driving Blackbeard's crew back, and opening a path for his sons. He slumped, breath ragged, but lifted his head for all to hear. "Hear me, sons of the sea. The One Piece, it's real. My family will live on." He fixed his eyes on Naruto. "Come here, brat." Naruto rushed to his side, tears streaming. "Oyaji." Whitebeard pressed his great hand to Naruto's chest, the last sparks of the quake fruit transferring in a shimmering pulse of power. "Carry my strength. Protect our family. Start the new age." Naruto bowed his head, accepting the mantle. "I promise, Oyaji. I'll protect them. All of them." With a final breath, Whitebeard's laughter echoed above the chaos. Then he fell, still on his feet, like a mountain that would never truly crumble. The world wept as Whitebeard died, but his legacy burned brighter than ever. Blackbeard tried to claim the quake fruit, but Naruto's chakra Enel kept it from him, a surge of energy knocking Blackbeard back. "Not for you," Naruto said, voice steely. "Not ever." A furious Blackbeard, denied his prize, howled as the pirates rallied. "This isn't over, brat. The world will belong to me." But for today, the pirates stood together, free, bloodied, unbroken. Ace, alive and weeping, hugged Naruto and Luffy tight. "Thank you. I owe you everything." Naruto, still reeling, looked to the horizon, where a new era waited. As the pirates rallied and prepared their retreat, Whitebeard's words rang in every heart. The old age was gone. A new one, born in fire and brotherhood, was just beginning. The world seemed to stop as Whitebeard's massive form finally stilled, towering even in death. The strongest man alive had fallen, but not before shaking the earth, splitting the sea, and lighting a fire in every soul watching. The plaza of Marineford was in ruins. Cracked stone, shattered walls, flames licking the sky. Blackbeard stared at Whitebeard's body, hunger in his eyes. Zihaha, the quake fruit. Mine at last. He reached out, darkness billowing from his hands, intent on claiming the old man's final gift. But the air pulsed with something new. Naruto stepped forward, still shaking with loss, but his gaze blazing. Chakra and the last traces of Whitebeard's power surged in his body, the inheritance of two worlds colliding in his soul. "No," Naruto said, voice as steady as the ocean. "You won't take anything from him, or us, ever again." Blackbeard's darkness lashed out, seeking to consume the power, but Naruto met it with a wall of swirling chakra, golden and crimson, fused with the deep, thunderous vibration of the quake fruit. The ground trembled beneath his feet. "Impossible," Blackbeard roared, struggling to push forward. "You're just a brat. That fruit is mine by right." Naruto felt Whitebeard's last words echo through him. "Carry my strength. Protect our family. Start the new age." With a cry, he slammed his palm to the ground. The plaza erupted in a shockwave, cracks racing outward, forcing Blackbeard and his crew back. Pirates and marines alike stumbled as the sea itself churned, the very world protesting the clash of wills. Marco, Jozu, and the other commanders rallied, taking advantage of the chaos to cover the retreat. "Everyone fall back," Marco shouted. "Naruto's got us covered." Luffy and Ace stood at Naruto's side, faces set with determination. "We're not leaving you," Luffy said, fists clenched. Ace glanced at Naruto, a mixture of pride and grief in his eyes. "Let's finish this, for Oyaji." Blackbeard lunged again, his yami no mi warping the light. "You think you can stop me, boy? I'll take everything from you, just like I took from him." Naruto's answer was a surge of power, red chakra swirling, quake energy crackling through every punch. The two collided, the air rippling with every blow. Blackbeard's darkness tried to swallow Naruto's light, but it could not break his will. Behind them, the pirates gathered for the escape. Jinbei and Sabo joined the fray, fighting off marines who tried to cut off their retreat. Sabo's flames joined Naruto's quake chakra storm, pushing back the enemy lines. The admirals regrouped, eyes fixed on Naruto. Akainu snarled. Akiji stood cold and silent, Kizaru's brow furrowed. They'd never seen such power, not from any pirate, not even Whitebeard. Whitebeard's last command echoed in their ears. "Protect the family. Start the new age." Naruto landed a final, thundering blow, sending Blackbeard sprawling. "You'll never be more than a coward, Teach. You had a family, and you threw it away for power you'll never understand." Blackbeard wiped blood from his mouth, eyes wild. "This isn't over, Naruto. The world will bow to me." But it was too late. The pirates, led by Naruto, Luffy, Ace, and Sabo, broke free of the plaza, racing for the ships as the sea split open, the tides roaring to cover their escape. Amid the carnage, a shadow watched from afar. Yamato, drawn by the echo of two worlds in Naruto's soul. Her eyes narrowed with curiosity and hope. "Could he really be?" she murmured, already thinking of the day they'd meet. On board the Moby Dick, battered and burning, the pirates crowded the deck. Marco took command, his voice hoarse but steady. "We did it. We saved Ace. And we carry Oyaji's will now. We fight another day." Naruto collapsed to his knees, exhaustion claiming him as the quake chakra glow faded. Luffy and Ace caught him, holding him steady as the world seemed to spin and settle. Ace pulled Naruto into a hug, tears streaking his face. "Thank you, Naruto, for everything. You kept your promise." Naruto managed a tired grin. "I couldn't have done it alone. Oyaji, all of you were a family. And that's something no one, not even Blackbeard, can destroy." The fleet began to move, battered but unbowed, slipping away from the chaos of Marineford as the Navy reeled from defeat and loss. Behind them, the era of Whitebeard ended, but a new age, led by the sons and brothers he'd inspired, was just beginning. As the sun set over a ruined Marineford, word spread across the world. Whitebeard is dead, but his sons live on. Ace is free. A new power rises in the west. A Storm Fox, Quakebringer, pirate commander with the heart of a brother and the strength of a legend. And in every corner of the world, those who had known fear looked to the horizon and dared to hope once more. The sun set on Marineford, painting the battered ships of the pirate fleet in hues of blood and gold. The Moby Dick, damaged but still afloat, led the retreat, surrounded by a ragtag armada of Whitebeard's sons, allies, and rescued friends. The once invincible fortress of Marineford shrank on the horizon, wreathed in fire and sorrow. On deck, pirates nursed wounds and counted the cost. The air was thick with the grief of those lost and the awe of those who had survived. Yet beneath the pain, a quiet resolve grew, a sense that they had not just witnessed history, but had shaped it. Naruto lay slumped against the mainmast, exhausted beyond words, but alive. His white sash was torn, hands trembling with aftershocks of the quake energy still swirling faintly in his veins. Ace, Luffy, and Sabo huddled close, the four brothers together again in the aftermath of war. For a long while, no one spoke. They simply breathed, shoulder to shoulder, hearts pounding with the weight of what they'd done and what they'd lost. Ace broke the silence first, his voice rough. "We made it. All of us. I thought I'd never see you guys again." Luffy flashed a tired grin, rubbing his head. "Of course we did. You're my brother. I'm never letting you out of my sight again. Unless there's meat involved." Sabo smiled, quiet tears on his cheeks. "The world will remember this day, not for a war, but for what family can do." Naruto nodded, looking between them. "We kept our promise. No matter how bad it got, we stuck together." He looked out over the scattered ships, the faces of battered but defiant pirates. "Whitebeard gave us more than power. He gave us each other." Ace swallowed, shoulders shaking. "Oyaji, he saved me more times than I can count. He saved all of us." Marco joined them, his own wounds hastily bandaged, blue flames still flickering at his shoulders. He crouched, clapping Ace and Naruto on the back. "He's gone, but not forgotten you all. You all did him proud. Especially you, Naruto. Without you, we would have lost more than our captain." Naruto flushed, scratching his head. I just did what a brother's supposed to do." Jinbei, stoic as ever, approached with a grim smile. "The world will chase us now, harder than ever. But you proved something today, Naruto. You carry the will of D, and now, Whitebeard's will, too. The seas will never be the same." A hush settled as the crew gathered around their fallen brothers and commanders. Luffy hugged Naruto and Ace so hard they nearly choked. Sabo looked to the horizon, fire reflected in his eyes. "I have to go," Sabo said at last. "The revolution needs me, but I'll never be far. We're brothers, after all." He pulled them into one last embrace. "Someday, we'll meet again in a world that's finally free." Naruto nodded, blinking back tears. "Someday." As night deepened, the battered fleet drifted together, sails patched, wounds tended. Pirates who had once been rivals now shared stories, food, and memories beneath the stars. Marco and Jozu divided the ships and responsibilities, but all eyes turned to Naruto, now the youngest commander, the inheritor of Whitebeard's dream. Ace found Naruto sitting alone at the prow, the night wind ruffling his blonde hair. "Do you ever think we'll really change things?" Ace asked quietly. Naruto gazed at the moonlit sea, voice steady. "I know we will. We have to. That's the promise we made, to Oyaji, to each other, to every kid out there who needs someone to believe in them." Ace nodded, a sad smile on his lips. "We'll do it together, like always." Footsteps approached, Luffy, bouncing back with impossible energy despite everything, and a newcomer with wild white hair and gentle eyes. Yamato, drawn by the chaos and the echo of Whitebeard's final quake. She hesitated, looking at Naruto with a sense of destiny. You're the one, aren't you? The one carrying two worlds' dreams." Naruto stood, heart pounding. "I'm Naruto, son of Whitebeard, brother to pirates and revolutionaries. And I'm not finished yet." Yamato smiled, hope in her eyes. "Good. The world needs you. Weno needs you." The others gathered around as the first stars appeared, voices mingling with the song of the sea. News of Marineford spread like wildfire. Some called it the fall of an era. Others, the birth of a new one. Pirates, kings, and common folk everywhere whispered the name of Naruto. The Storm Fox, Quakebringer, son of Whitebeard. Bounties soared. Legends grew. But on the Moby Dick, among family, the weight of loss turned slowly to the resolve of survivors. As the fleet sailed into the unknown, Naruto watched the horizon, hand on his heart, feeling the power and promise of the will of D and the legacy of Whitebeard. He was no longer just the lost child of a celestial dragon. He was a brother, a leader, and the storm at the heart of the new age. Whatever dangers waited, whatever enemies arose, one thing was certain. The bonds they'd forged would endure. Morning broke gentle and gray across the battered remnants of Whitebeard's fleet. The sea, churned to fury only hours before, now stretched calm and endless, as if mourning with the pirates drifting upon its surface. On the Moby Dick's deck, the crew gathered in silence, the weight of loss and the promise of tomorrow heavy in the salty air. The wounded were tended, ships were counted, and a memorial for Whitebeard, Oyaji to them all, was raised at the prow. His great bicento, planted upright, marked the spot, surrounded by flowers and the battered white sashes of his sons. Marco stood before the crew, voice hoarse. "We have lost our captain, but not our way. Oyaji's dream, his will, lives on in all of us. And in our new era, we will carry it forward." Naruto stepped forward, still feeling the echo of Quake energy in his bones. He knelt before the memorial, bowing his head. The rest followed, each offering words, mementos, or just silent tears. Ace pressed his forehead to the wood, whispering, "Thank you, Oyaji, for saving me, for loving me." Even Luffy, so rarely quiet, stood in awe, clutching his straw hat. "Thank you for my brothers," Jinbei rumbled. "Whitebeard changed this world for the better. It is on us to protect that legacy." Yamato, quiet but resolute, stood with the crew. She felt the gaze of destiny on them all. As the fleet sailed on, pirates old and new shared stories by lantern light. Wild tales of Whitebeard's laughter, the stubborn courage of his sons, the way Oyaji's great hands could both crush and comfort. The youngest told the legend of the Storm Fox, how Naruto's power had shaken Marineford and protected the family. Marco, now acting captain, watched Naruto with new respect. "You've become more than just a brother, Naruto. Your hope for everyone who dreams of freedom. Oyaji would be proud." Naruto smiled, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm just following the path he showed me, and I'll keep going, until this world is safe for everyone who calls the sea home." Ace joined them, gaze fierce. "We'll rebuild. We'll make the new world remember Whitebeard not for how he died, but for the family he left behind." Across the world, news of Marineford thundered from island to island. Whitebeard was gone, but the age of his sons had begun. The world government scrambled to control the narrative, downplaying the quake that split the sea, whispering about new bounties, naming Naruto and Ace as threats to world order. But they could not silence the legend that grew with every telling. Pirates cheered in hidden taverns. Fishermen wept on the docks. Even enemies paused to pay respect to the old man who had dared to challenge the whole world for the sake of his sons. That night, the crew gathered under the open sky, sake cups raised. Marco led the toast. To Whitebeard, to family, to the new age. They drank, laughter and tears mingling. Naruto felt the warmth of the crew at his back, the steady beat of the sea beneath his feet, and a new, unbreakable purpose in his heart. Later, as the celebration faded and the stars blazed above, Ace and Luffy found Naruto alone at the rail. The three brothers watched the horizon together. "What now?" Luffy asked, a rare seriousness in his tone. Naruto grinned. "Now? We live. We laugh. We keep moving forward. There's a whole new world out there. A world where nobody has to be afraid." Ace clapped him on the back. "We make Oyaji's dream real. For every lost kid, every outcast, every pirate who needs a family." Luffy's eyes sparkled. "And we eat meat." They laughed, arms around each other. For a moment, the pain eased, replaced by the unshakable certainty that, together, they could face anything. Behind them, Yamato watched, hope blooming in her chest. Soon, she would lead them to Weno, where new adventures and new allies waited. The dawn truly belonged to a new age. As the fleet sailed on, Naruto stood at the prow, wind in his hair, Whitebeard's bicento standing proud. The will of D, the will of fire, the legacy of a pirate king, and the dream of a family, all burned in his chest. He lifted his head, eyes shining with challenge and hope. "Bring on the new world," he whispered. "We're not done yet." The sun rose, fierce and bright, painting the waves gold. The world's story was far from over. Its greatest legends were only beginning. End of Marineford War arc. The sea after war is strangely silent. The battered ships of the Whitebeard fleet floated together on the endless blue, sails patched, and colors flying at half-mast. For the first time since any could remember, the air was thick not with laughter or bickering, but with sorrow, and uncertainty. Above them all, the battered Moby Dick flew Whitebeard's flag, a promise to the world that even in loss, their family endured. On the main deck, the crew assembled for the memorial. Flowers and offerings ringed the base of Whitebeard's great bicentennial, planted upright beside a smaller marker for every brother lost at Marineford. The men and women who called themselves his sons stood shoulder to shoulder, faces streaked with salt, some from the ocean, some from tears. Marco stepped forward, bandaged and worn, a man carrying more than his share. He looked at each of them, searching for the right words, the words Whitebeard himself would have used. "We lost more than a captain," Marco began, voice rough. "We lost our father, but he left us a dream. As long as we remember that, as long as we remember him, we haven't truly lost anything." The wind caught the flag overhead, snapping it out with sudden force. For a moment, the sound was all that filled the world. Naruto stood apart at the rail, fists clenched, knuckles white. His white sash fluttered in the wind, a symbol heavy with hope and guilt. Every wave seemed to echo with Oyaji's laugh, every gust to carry Ace's cry for help. If I had been stronger, if I'd understood Oyaji's pain, Ace's burden, sooner, maybe things would have ended differently. He didn't notice Ace approaching until a warm hand landed on his shoulder. "Hey," Ace said softly, voice still raw from loss and relief. "You blaming yourself?" Naruto looked away. "Don't you? I should have been able to protect everyone. Oyaji, you. If I'd been faster, if I'd trained harder, maybe." Ace sighed and leaned on the rail beside him, gazing out at the horizon. "You sound like me. Remember Dawn Island? How many times did you have to tell me not to carry everything alone?" Naruto's shoulders shook. "But Oyaji died because we weren't strong enough." Ace shook his head. "No, Oyaji died because he chose us over everything. Because he wanted us to live, to dream. He gave everything so we could have a future. That's not something to regret. It's something to honor." The sea was calm around them, the fleet bobbing gently, as if listening. Ace nudged Naruto, a faint smile flickering. "You saved me. You saved a lot of us. You gave Oyaji hope to the very end. I'm still figuring out how to live with that. But I know this, we can't change the past. All we can do is carry his will forward. Together." Naruto let the words sink in. The ache in his chest eased, just a little. He took a shaky breath, then nodded. Together, they stood in silence for a moment, letting the wind carry away old pain, planting the seeds of something new. Marco called for a meeting below deck as dusk fell. The commanders and senior crew gathered in the cramped mess, lanterns casting long shadows on every face. The air was tense, the usual easy camaraderie replaced with uncertainty. Marco unrolled a map on the table, his voice steady but heavy. "We've lost more than numbers. The world thinks the Whitebeard pirates are finished. Islands we protected are already under attack. Some of our allies have jumped ship, afraid of the fallout. The only way forward is to regroup, to grow stronger." Jozu slammed a fist on the table. "And teach? Blackbeard is already carving up the new world, taking what used to be ours." Whispers of anger and fear rippled through the room. Marco nodded. "We'll deal with him. But not if we run ourselves ragged chasing every rumor. First, we get our family back on its feet. Then, we remind the world what Oyaji's sons can do." Naruto spoke up, surprising even himself. "We're not just pirates anymore. We're a promise. Oyaji believed in us, even when the world called us monsters. We need to become something new, something better, for the people who still look to us for hope." The words hung in the air, soft but powerful. Some of the older crew nodded. A few even managed tired smiles. After the meeting, word spread of new dangers. A battered scout ship brought news of Blackbeard's rampage. Whole islands falling, innocent people fleeing, chaos rising. Bounty posters for Naruto, Ace, and even Marco now showed numbers the world had never seen. Naruto wandered the moonlit deck, the burden of legacy pressing down. He felt the quake power in his bones, wild and restless, as if Oyaji's spirit was still there, urging him forward, never letting him rest. He found himself at the prow, staring at the horizon. What does it mean to be a leader? To inherit a dream bigger than the sea itself? Soft footsteps approached. Ace again, persistent as always. This time, he offered Naruto a drink. "One day at a time," Ace said, clinking their cups. "We'll grow into it." Oyaji's dream wasn't about being perfect. It was about being together. No matter what. Naruto managed to smile. "Guess I still have a lot to learn." Ace grinned. We all do. But I can't think of anyone I'd rather learn with. They drank, feeling the scars on their hearts begin to heal. Around them, the crew laughed for the first time since the war, soft, cautious, but real. Above, the stars shone down, bright and endless. The seeds of a new era had been planted, nourished by grief, hope, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Somewhere in the dark, Marco watched and nodded to himself. "We'll be all right," he whispered to the night. "As long as we remember who we are." The wind shifted, carrying the promise of tomorrow across the waves. The Whitebeard fleet faded into legend, slipping from the world's eyes like ghosts on the tide. Their sails vanished into fog and cloud, leaving the Navy and Blackbeard's men chasing only rumors. In hidden coves and isolated islands, the family nursed its wounds and set about the quiet work of becoming stronger. Naruto stood at the prow of the Moby Dick, wind tugging at his hair and sash. The sun rose on another day of exile, but there was something new in the air, a sense of purpose, a silent challenge. He flexed his fingers, feeling the strange tremor of the quake fruit deep in his bones, buzzing alongside the familiar fire of his chakra. Down on the beach, Marco led a group of young pirates through drills, his voice uncharacteristically sharp but encouraging. "Balance, you You can't fight for your family if you can't stand on your own 2 feet." Jinbei trained a small group in the sea, his massive arms moving with surprising grace as he taught fishermen karate to pirates who had never dreamed of such power. Josu's division worked with boulders, laughing as they tried, and mostly failed, to copy his diamond skin. The remnants of Whitebeard's crew, scattered but united, worked day and night. Morale was fragile, but each hour of training, each sparring match, forged bonds stronger than iron. Ace, always restless, poured himself into mastering his haki. He stood on the clifftop, eyes closed, flames flickering around his fists. Marco coached him, urging him to feel the world, not just burn it. "Listen, Ace, haki isn't just force. It's resolve, conviction. You can't protect anyone with fire alone." Ace grit his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. He remembered Marineford, the helplessness of those seastone cuffs. Never again, he vowed. Every day, his Kinbunshiku and Busashoka haki grew stronger, bit by bit. Naruto's journey was stranger and lonelier. The quake fruit's power was wild. Every time he tried to summon it, the ground shook and cracks spiderwebbed from his feet. It was nothing like chakra, not a flow, but a crash. Even in meditation, he felt the 2 energies war and swirl inside him. One morning, he tried to combine a Rasengan with a tremor. The sand beneath his feet exploded, flinging him into the air. The crew laughed, but Marco only smiled. "You'll get it, Naruto. Oyaji wouldn't have chosen you if he didn't believe." At night, Naruto sat alone, thinking of Whitebeard's words. "You carry more than power, brat. You carry hope. You carry family." Sometimes, in dreams, he glimpsed his real parents. A blonde man with a gentle smile, a red-haired woman with fierce eyes. "We're proud of you," they whispered. "You're never alone." He awoke with new resolve each day, practicing not just his strength, but his control, his spirit, and his heart. The days blurred together, sparring, meditation, laughter, and the kind of exhaustion that brings peace. The crew began to heal. Raucous voices returned to the mess hall. Old grudges softened. Marco and Ace shared quiet moments, planning for the future. Even Josu learned to crack a joke or 2. But it wasn't just Whitebeard's sons who trained. Far across the sea, Luffy vanished with Rayleigh to a mysterious island. Sabo returned to the revolutionaries, vowing to grow strong enough to protect the weak. Jinbei departed to keep his promise to Fishman Island. One by one, allies parted ways, each forging their own path to the new world. Before he left, Luffy found Naruto atop a palm tree, both of them gazing at the dawn. "We'll meet again soon, right?" Luffy asked, grinning wide. Naruto grinned back. "You bet. And next time, I'll be even stronger. We'll have an even bigger adventure." Sabo gave Naruto a brief, fierce hug. "You saved Ace. You're a brother to me, too. Don't forget what we fought for." Naruto promised, "I won't." As the weeks passed, breakthroughs came slowly, then all at once. Naruto learned to steady the quake power with his will, letting it flow with, not against, his chakra. Sometimes, when he meditated, he felt Oyaji's presence, proud, patient, and never far away. He could feel a new strength awakening inside, not just in his body, but in his heart. He learned that true power wasn't about destruction. It was about protecting dreams, his own and everyone else's. One starlit night, Marco called the crew together on the deck. "It's time," he announced, voice carrying over the surf. "We've mourned, we've trained, and we've remembered who we are. The new world is waiting, and it's time we show them the Whitebeard pirates are still alive." Naruto joined him, standing before the crew as equal. The sash at his waist was no longer just Whitebeard's gift. It was a promise. He looked out at the faces, old friends, new brothers, the next generation of pirates. "We set sail for Rosa," he declared, voice strong. "A new age is here, and no one, not the world government, not Blackbeard, not anyone, will take our family from us again." Cheers rang out, louder than the surf, filled with hope and defiance. The Whitebeard pirates, scarred but unbroken, turned their sails toward the rising sun. Naruto stood at the prow, heart full, eyes fixed on the horizon, ready for whatever the new world would throw at them. The seeds had been planted. Now, it was time for them to grow. End of post-war/training arc. The sky above Rosa was so blue it hurt to look at, cloudless, brilliant, and utterly deceptive. From a distance, the island seemed like a paradise. Sun-drenched hills, windmills spinning lazily, flowers lining the cobbled streets. But as the Whitebeard pirates slipped into port, disguised and wary, Naruto felt an uneasy pressure in the air, like the stillness before a storm. The harbor bustled with merchant ships and marines, but beneath the noise, Naruto caught the furtive glances, the way locals whispered behind their hands, the tension that never quite broke. His crew noticed too. Ace scanned the crowd, brow furrowed, while Marco kept a watchful eye on the port guards. Every so often, a toy soldier would march stiffly past, a strange sight, even in the Grand Line. "Looks friendly enough," Ace muttered, shouldering his bag. "But I don't like the way folks keep looking over their shoulders." "They're scared," Naruto replied quietly. He could feel the weight of it. Fear, tightly wound, like invisible strings pulling every smile and word. They passed a stall where a young girl sold sunflowers, her smile practiced and empty. An old man, hunched and trembling, flinched at every loud sound. Even the air felt staged, as if the whole city were an audience for someone else's cruel play. It didn't take long to find their allies. Luffy stood on the corner of a plaza, already stuffing his face with meat skewers, Law by his side, stoic and sharp-eyed as ever. The moment Naruto and Ace appeared, Luffy bounded over, nearly bowling them both into the fountain. "Naruto, Ace, you made it." Luffy grinned, crumbs flying. Law rolled his eyes, but offered a rare, genuine smile. "Glad to see you're both in one piece. Rosa's changed since last time I passed through." Naruto clapped Luffy on the back, then glanced around, voice low. "What's the story here? The people seem off." Law's expression darkened. "Don Quixote Doflamingo runs everything. Government, underground, the Colosseum. He uses his devil fruit to control people, turn some into toys, and crush anyone who resists. The king's nothing but a figurehead. The Marines turn a blind eye, as long as Doflamingo keeps the world government happy." Ace scowled. "Sounds like a party. What about the resistance?" "Scattered. Most are too afraid, or they're hiding," Law replied. "The few who do fight don't last long." Naruto's hands clenched. He looked over the city again, really seeing it. The way soldiers and toys marched in lockstep, the families who avoided eye contact, the faint bruises on a mother's arm as she hurried her child away from the plaza. He remembered what it meant to be powerless, and what it felt like to find hope. He looked to his brothers, his crew, and his new allies. "We can't turn away from this. Not just because of Doflamingo, because these people deserve better. Oyaji taught us to protect those who can't protect themselves." "I'm in." Luffy grinned. "Me too. I hate bullies." Ace nodded, the old fire in his eyes. "Let's make some noise." Law's smirk grew. "Then welcome to the Alliance. We have a plan, but it'll take all of us." The Whitebeard Pirates and the Straw Hat Heart Alliance split into teams, blending in among the locals. Marco and Jinbei took the main streets, keeping an eye on marine patrols and searching for weak spots in Doflamingo's web. Jozu and Vista melted into the bustling marketplace, ears open for rumors and news from the underground. Naruto, Ace, Luffy, and Law took the lead, moving cautiously through back alleys and shadowed arcades. They posed as travelers, blending with street performers and market vendors. But trouble found them quickly. A young boy, bruised and ragged, collided with Naruto as he darted from a shouting soldier. "Help, mister, he's gonna turn me into a toy," the boy whimpered, clutching Naruto's coat. The pursuing guard, cruel smile twisted, raised his baton. "Move aside. Doflamingo's justice doesn't wait." Naruto moved without thinking, stepping between the boy and the guard. "Not today," the guard sneered. "Big words for an outsider. You want to be a toy too?" Ace, Law, and Luffy appeared at Naruto's side, each radiating their own brand of danger. The guard hesitated, his confidence wavering. Naruto knelt to the boy, offering a kind smile. "Go home. Stay out of sight. We'll handle this." The boy nodded, running into the crowd. The guard growled but backed down, muttering about new faces and troublemakers. As they regrouped, Law's eyes narrowed. That's how it starts. Doflamingo's people use fear and magic to control the city. If we want to win, we need to win their trust. Naruto nodded. We protect them first. Then we fight. Night fell over Dressrosa, neon lights painting the streets in strange, flickering colors. In a hidden cellar beneath an abandoned tavern, the Alliance convened. Marco reported the Marines were uneasy, watching for a brewing rebellion. Jinbei brought news of the underground fighters, battered but hopeful, waiting for a sign. Naruto sat at the head of the table, the sash at his waist a reminder of Whitebeard's dream. He glanced around at Luffy, Law, Ace, Marco, Jinbei, and the others, brothers, allies, and rebels united. "We can't fight for every country," he said softly. "But we can fight for this one. We show the people we're on their side. We stand up to Doflamingo and his strings. And maybe, just maybe, we help Dressrosa remember what freedom looks like." Ace grinned. "Sounds like a plan." Law's gaze was steely. "Just remember, Doflamingo's not like other warlords. He'll use anyone, sacrifice anything. We'll need all our strength." Naruto nodded, the pressure of leadership heavy but no longer crushing. For Whitebeard, for all of us. Outside, the city slept in uneasy silence, waiting for the storm that was coming. And for the first time, hope flickered in the dark, like the first cut string on a puppet's hand. The dawn after their arrival broke over Dressrosa with crimson light, as if the city itself was bleeding. Doflamingo's strings, invisible but everywhere, were drawn tight across the kingdom. In the palace, the warlord lounged atop his gaudy throne, sunglasses flashing. A den mushy croaked beside him. "So, the storm fox has landed," Doflamingo purred, teeth bared in a wolfish smile. "Let's give him a proper Dressrosa welcome." At his signal, chaos erupted across the city. Puppet strings danced in the air, latching onto unsuspecting Marines and townsfolk. Citizens who resisted were yanked like marionettes, forced to patrol or spy for Doflamingo. In the Colosseum, gladiators were thrown into fresh battles, some for their lives, some for the entertainment of the warlord's loyalists. By mid-morning, the Alliance was already on the move. Ace, Law, and Marco slipped through underground tunnels toward the Smile Factory, intent on cutting off Doflamingo's devil fruit supply and breaking his stranglehold on the black market. Naruto, Luffy, and a small band of rebel fighters, including the young boy he'd saved the day before, headed for the heart of the city. Their goal: rally the people, win trust, and break Doflamingo's hold on their hearts. They barely made it 2 blocks before trouble found them. A hulking officer in a feathered coat, Diamante, stood at a plaza's center, laughing as his blade flickered in the sun. Well, if it isn't Whitebeard's little fox. Let's see what makes you so special." Marines, their eyes vacant and glazed, formed a human wall behind him, swords drawn. Atop the rooftops, Doflamingo's toy soldiers waited, ready to ambush anyone who resisted. Naruto felt the eyes of 100 citizens watching, terrified but hopeful. He knew what he had to do. He stepped forward, Luffy at his side, the boy clinging to his coat. "Get behind me," Naruto said softly. Diamante's grin widened. "What's wrong? Afraid to fight in front of your new fans?" Naruto let the quake energy thrum in his fists, blending it with the swirl of chakra. His skin shimmered, the sash at his waist fluttering as the ground began to vibrate. "I'm not afraid of you," Naruto answered. "But I won't let you hurt anyone else." With a bellow, Diamante lunged. Naruto dodged left, catching the blade with a chakra-coated hand. The impact sent a shockwave down the plaza, knocking Marines and toy soldiers off their feet. Luffy launched himself at the line of Marines, fists flying. "Goma Gomu no Gatling," he shouted, sending a flurry of rubbery punches through the hypnotized men, knocking them aside without real harm. Naruto saw a group of citizens pinned by puppet strings, their limbs jerking against their will. He remembered Whitebeard's voice. "Family is more than blood. It's those you protect, no matter the cost." And a flash of memory. His father, Minato, kneeling beside him. "Real strength is the courage to never let the weak be trampled," he roared, slamming his palm into the ground. The quake and chakra fused, waves of force rippling outward, snapping Doflamingo's puppet strings and freeing the citizens. The boy gasped, stumbling as his mother pulled him into a shaking embrace. Diamante staggered. What did you do?" Naruto stood tall, the ground trembling beneath him. "I cut your strings. The people of Dressrosa aren't yours to play with anymore." The plaza erupted. Citizens, emboldened by their sudden freedom, picked up stones and brooms, chasing the toy soldiers back. The rebels rushed in, fighting side by side with the pirates. On the palace balcony, Doflamingo watched with cold amusement. "Interesting. Let's see if the fox can handle my whole family." Elsewhere in the city, Ace, Law, and Marco found their path to the factory blocked by Pika, his massive stone form rising from the earth, voice booming. "You won't get past me." Law's jaw tightened. "We don't need to. Ace, go high. Marco, with me." As explosions and battles echoed through the streets, Law's purpose burned. This isn't just about Dressrosa, he thought. It's about revenge. Doflamingo's crimes ran deep, and Law would see justice served, no matter the cost. Back in the plaza, Naruto fought alongside Luffy, protecting the rebels as more Don Quixote officers appeared, gliding Gladius, Trickster Dellinger, and the mad baby giant, Senor Pink. Each time, Naruto's power was tested, forced to switch from quake-infused jutsu to clever feints, always careful to shield the citizens and never let his rage go wild. The people began to see. These pirates weren't like the monsters Doflamingo claimed. They fought for them, not just against their enemies. A mother shielded her daughter behind Naruto's legs. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving us behind." Naruto, panting, managed a shaky grin. "We're not done yet. We're just getting started." As the battles raged, whispers spread from street to street. "Whitebeard's son fights for us. The storm fox broke Doflamingo's strings. Maybe we can be free." In a rare moment of calm, as rebels patched wounds and secured the plaza, Luffy collapsed next to Naruto, grinning wide. "Told you this would be fun." Naruto laughed, but his mind was serious. For the first time, he felt the full weight of command, not just for his crew, but for everyone who needed him. Above, Doflamingo's shadow lengthened, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "You've started a rebellion, brat. Let's see if you can finish it." But as the sun set over Dressrosa, for the first time in years, hope flickered in the streets. And Naruto, battered and smiling, knew that as long as they fought together, he, Ace, Law, Luffy, and all the rebels, no string could hold them forever. Lightning split the sky above Dressrosa, rain battering the palace's stained glass windows as chaos thundered through the city. Naruto, Luffy, Ace, and Law raced up the marbled steps, each footfall echoing the battle raging below. Behind them, the plaza boiled with rebellion, citizens and pirates fighting side by side, pushing back against the last of Doflamingo's enforcers. At the throne room doors, Naruto paused, breathing hard. He felt the hum of quake power and chakra deep inside, two storms swirling. Beside him, Ace's fists flickered with blue flames. Luffy bounced on his toes, grinning, and Law's eyes were sharp with purpose. The doors burst open. There, Doflamingo stood atop his throne, sunglasses gleaming, coat fluttering. By his side loomed Treble, Diamante, and Pika, bloody but defiant, the last shield for their king. Doflamingo smirked. "So, the legendary sons finally arrive. Tell me, Naruto, are you ready to trade all these lives for a single victory?" He flicked his fingers, strings danced, wrapping around helpless citizens in the street below, drawing them into view through the palace's shattered windows. Naruto's hands shook, anger boiling inside him. "You use people as shields because you're afraid. Of us. Of them. That's not strength, Doflamingo. That's cowardice." Doflamingo laughed, the sound echoing off marble and gold. Everyone's a puppet, Storm Fox. Even you. You think you're free? You're as tangled as the rest. Ace stepped forward, fire roaring. Let them go. Pika and Diamante leapt down, swords clashing with Ace and Luffy. Law dodged Treble's sticky assaults, slicing strings with room and shambles. Doflamingo's gaze locked on Naruto, lips curled. Make your move. Save them if you can. Naruto closed his eyes, feeling the world tighten. In his mind, Whitebeard's voice rumbled. Power isn't about control. It's about breaking chains. Another voice, gentle and fierce. His mother, Kushina. Don't let fear decide what kind of man you'll be, Naruto. He looked up, resolve blazing. You don't get to decide who I am. With a roar, Naruto unleashed everything. Chakra blazed around him, Ninetales' energy fusing with the raw, rolling force of the quake fruit. The floor cracked and surged. Wind and energy swirled in a storm. Doflamingo yanked his strings, trying to force the hostages to leap from the windows. But Naruto's chakra split, tails of golden and red light whipping out to catch the falling people, cushioning them and lowering them safely to the ground. Luffy broke through Diamante's defense, sending him crashing through the wall. I got this guy, Naruto. Go get the big bird. Law and Ace fought back to back, flames and swordwork keeping Treble and Pika at bay. Finish it, Naruto. Law shouted. Naruto surged forward, meeting Doflamingo at the center of the shattered throne room. Strings whipped at him, but the Quake Chakra's storm shattered them, scattering fragments of marble and velvet. Doflamingo sneered, blood dripping down his chin. You really think you can win? The world government will come for you next. You'll never be safe. Naruto's eyes glowed. Maybe not. But today, these people are free, and you're finished. He gathered everything. Chakra and Quake power singing in harmony. With a deafening shout, he slammed his fist down. Quake release. Rasengan impact. The shockwave blasted through the throne room, shattering Doflamingo's last defenses and sending the warlord sprawling. Strings writhed and snapped across the city. Citizens dropped, dazed but unharmed, as the last of Doflamingo's control broke. Outside, the rebels cheered. The last officers of the Don Quixote family fell. For the first time in years, the people of Dressrosa raised their voices not in fear, but in joy. Doflamingo groaned, beaten, his strings limp. Naruto stood over him, breathless but triumphant. This is for every life you try to steal. The city erupted with celebration. The palace gates burst open, and children led the charge to reclaim their home. Luffy, Ace, and Law joined Naruto, battered but smiling. A grateful king, once a prisoner in his own palace, emerged to thank them, promising that Dressrosa would never forget what the pirates had done. As dawn broke, the alliance gathered at the edge of the city. The Whitebeard flag and the straw hat Jolly Roger flew side by side, symbols of hope for all to see. Naruto watched the sunrise, feeling the world shift. Law approached, nodding. I never thought I'd trust pirates again. You proved me wrong. Ace grinned, draping an arm around Naruto. Told you my little brother could shake the world. Luffy bounced, ready for the next adventure. Where to now? Naruto looked to the horizon, a new determination in his heart. There's a whole world waiting to be set free, and we're not done yet. They bid farewell to Dressrosa, with new allies, old scars, and the promise of more storms to come. But as they set sail, for the first time since Marineford, Naruto felt not only the weight of Whitebeard's dream, but the thrill of chasing his own. The age of freedom had only just begun. End of Dressrosa arc news on the Grand Line traveled fast, especially when it concerned a Yonko's wedding. The Whitebeard pirates were halfway to Weno when a battered news coup dropped a headline onto the Moby Dick. Blackleg Sanji to wed Big Mom's daughter. Pirate alliance to become part of Charlotte family. Luffy nearly fell overboard in shock. Sanji's getting married? Without telling us. Naruto scanned the article, frown deepening. This isn't good. If Big Mom gets her hands on Sanji, she can control the Germa and, maybe, split our alliance for good. He turned to Ace and Marco, determination flaring in his eyes. We're going to Whole Cake Island. No way are we letting Sanji be forced into this. Luffy grinned. Let's crash the wedding and eat all the food. The crew cheered, ready for the kind of chaos only they could bring. Tato Land was like a fever dream. Bright candy-colored skies, chocolate rivers, houses built from cream and sponge cake. As the Alliance's ships approached under cover of darkness, even the seasoned pirates gawked. Jinbei, guiding the fleet, warned, "Don't let your guard down." Everything here is alive. Even the food will bite back if it smells fear. Like Konoha with more calories and way less sanity. Naruto muttered, eyebrow twitching as a gingerbread house waved at him. Naruto, Luffy, and a strike team, including Nami, Brook, and Marco, slipped ashore, cloaked in hoods and chakra-tinged stealth. Naruto crouched low, hands forming silent signs. The energy of his chakra let him blend with the shadows, even as living chess pieces patrolled the cake-laden streets. The mission was clear: find Sanji, scout the wedding, and sabotage Big Mom's plans. Their first challenge came in the form of a living flan who, upon seeing Luffy's disguised face, screamed "Intruders" at the top of its pudding lung capacity. Nami zapped it with her climb attack, while Naruto, suppressing laughter, yanked Luffy into an alley. "Can't take you anywhere," he hissed, grinning. But the strangeness was only beginning. The team dodged animate eclairs, leapt over a caramel river, and even outwitted a pair of homicidal teacups. Marco's blue flames proved handy when a bread roll tried to smother Chopper, while Brook, to everyone's horror, serenaded a trio of cookie soldiers into a daze. Naruto felt the pressure mounting. Every inch of progress meant more eyes on them, more danger. Worse still, he could sense the raw, oppressive soul of Big Mom herself, a force as heavy as Whitebeard's, but twisted with hunger and madness. Inside the massive whole cake chateau, the wedding preparations were in full swing. Guests from every corner of the underworld mingled with Charlotte children, and the air was thick with tension. In a gilded chamber, Sanji sat, face tight with worry, hands trembling as he glanced at the door. The weight of family and alliance pressed in on him. He knew his choices would shape more than just his own fate. Pudding, sitting beside him, whispered, "Don't worry. I have a plan too. Maybe together we can break free." Her eyes flickered with secrets. Meanwhile, Naruto and the team navigated the castle's insane labyrinth, ducking under swinging licorice ropes and sidestepping walls that threatened to snitch on them. Naruto paused, gathering chakra, and closed his eyes. Sense, just like Marco taught. Blend quake energy and chakra. Feel every tremor. He could feel it, the shifting moods of the living castle, the heartbeats of allies and enemies, the thrum of danger in every wall. A burst of shouts echoed down a hallway. Naruto peeked around the corner and saw a squad of Big Mom's children, Perispero, Smoothie, and even Katakuri, gathered in heated discussion. "We have reports of pirates in the kitchens," Katakuri growled, voice cold as ice. "Check every hallway. If you find straw hats, show no mercy." Naruto signaled the others, mouth set in a determined line. "We need to move, now." With chakra and stealth, Naruto led the team deeper, slipping past living mirrors and singing silverware. Every time Luffy threatened to blow their cover, Nami pinched his ear, and Marco gave a stern glare. They reached the grand ballroom balcony, overlooking the wedding rehearsal. Sanji, face drawn but proud, standing beside, putting on a cake taller than the Moby Dick's mast. Down below, Big Mom's laughter shook the walls. "With this marriage, the world will tremble, and my power will be absolute." The tension snapped. A crash in the kitchens, thanks to Chopper and Brook, sent cake and guests flying. Alarms blared. Big Mom's children surged into action. Naruto acted. He vaulted the balcony, landing beside Sanji and Pudding, cloak swirling. "Come on, Prince Charming. We're crashing your party." Sanji's eyes widened. "Naruto? What? How? No time. Move." Naruto barked. Big Mom's scream filled the hall. "Intruders! You dare!" Katakuri leapt from the shadows, his fists coated in sticky mochi. Naruto faced him, meeting the commander's unreadable gaze. "You're not getting in our way." For the first time, Naruto let the fusion of quake power and chakra flow freely, his form glowing, the air trembling. Katakuri attacked, fist striking with preternatural force, but Naruto countered with a shockwave-infused palm, shaking the floor. The guests fled, and the alliance surged in. Luffy tackling Big Mom's army, Nami, and putting leading Sanji to safety, Marco clearing a path with blue fire. "Stick together," Naruto shouted, his chakra voice echoing across the hall. "We're not leaving anyone behind." The battle raged through the living castle, cake and chaos everywhere. Naruto, blood singing with new strength, laughed through the danger. This was family. This was freedom. Fighting, protecting, daring to hope. In the end, the alliance escaped by the skin of their teeth, sailing away as Big Mom's howls echoed across Tato land. They had rescued Sanji, shattered the wedding, and proven again that even Yonko could be defied. As they left, Naruto looked back at the smoldering towers, his resolve burning brighter than ever. On to Weno. We're not done yet. And for the first time, Tato Land's oppressed people looked out from their sugar-frosted windows and dared to believe in miracles. The wedding had become a war zone. What began as a grand, sugar-laced ceremony spiraled into chaos the moment the Alliance made their move. In the heart of the whole cake chateau, tables overturned and cakes exploded as Luffy, Naruto, and their friends faced down the furious Charlotte family. Big Mom's banshee wail sent guests scurrying, while her children rallied around her, turning the ballroom into a battlefield. Naruto kept low, guiding Sanji and putting toward the nearest exit. "We need to move, now," he shouted, chakra flaring as he deflected a giant spoon hurled by a living cake. Katakuri, towering and unreadable, landed before them with a thunderous crash. "You're not leaving," he intoned, Machi bristling along his arms. No one defies Big Mom and walks away. Sanji pushed Naruto aside, stepping forward with steel in his eyes. "This isn't about me. I'm not running from my family, any of them." He turned, looking Pudding in the eyes. "You deserve to choose your life, too." Pudding hesitated, then smiled, tears glimmering. "Go. I'll cover you." She spun, using her powers to create a smoke screen of memories, confusing nearby guards. Katakuri launched a fist, thick as a tree trunk, but Naruto met it with a quake-infused palm, the impact sending tremors through the castle floor. The commander's observation haki was keen, reading Naruto's every move, but the wild unpredictability of chakra and tremor energy made each exchange a clash of worlds. Luffy leapt to Sanji's side, shouting, "No one's taking my cook. Gomu Gomu no Kong gun." His punch knocked back a squad of Charlotte's siblings. Katakuri narrowed his eyes, sweat beading his brow. "Impressive, but you'll break before the future I see." Naruto shook his head, voice steady. "I don't care about your future. I make my own, and I protect my family, no matter what." The battle roared on. Nami and Brook led the escape, fending off Smoothie's sword swings and oven-hot attacks. Marco's flames held back Perospero's candy, burning a path through the chaos. Even Chopper, in monstrous form, hurled Charlotte goons like bowling pins. Naruto focused, remembering Whitebeard's last lesson. Mercy is the strength to know when to break the cycle. He dodged another barrage from Katakuri, weaving chakra with quake force. "You fight for a mother who rules with fear. Don't you want something more?" Katakuri hesitated, a flicker of doubt. Naruto pressed, landing a glancing blow that cracked the marble beneath Katakuri's feet. Big Mom shrieked, smashing tables with her club. "No one leaves. The feast isn't over until I say it is." The Alliance regrouped near the castle entrance. Sanji, face battered but eyes bright, turned to his friends. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Naruto grinned, clapping his shoulder. "We never leave a brother behind." Luffy flashed his trademark grin. "Now let's get out of here before she eats the building." The escape was a wild blur, dashing through enchanted kitchens, leaping over a river of molten chocolate, dodging homies with fangs and forks. Katakuri blocked their final path, but Naruto stood tall. "This is our way out. You can chase us, but you can't stop us," Naruto said, voice ringing clear. "Tell your mother, even the greatest empires can be shaken, and one day they fall." Katakuri let them pass, silent, watching as the Alliance fled to their ships. As dawn broke, the straw hat and Whitebeard flags unfurled together. The battered, laughing crew, Sanji safe, new friendships forged, set sail for Weno. On shore, the oppressed souls of Tato land watched the ships vanish, hope flickering in their eyes for the first time in years. In the captain's quarters, Naruto gathered his friends: Luffy, Sanji, Nami, Ace, Marco, Jinbei, and the rest. "We did it together," he said, voice thick with pride and relief. "But we're not done. Weno is next. We'll free it, just like we freed Dressrosa and Whole Cake. That's the promise of our family." Ace grinned. "The world's changing, little brother. We're the storm at its heart." Luffy raised his fist. "To Weno." Cheers rang out, echoing across the sea. And as the sun rose over a world of shaken empires, Naruto smiled at the horizon, ready for whatever the new dawn would bring. End of Whole Cake arc. The mist rolled over Weno's coast in gray waves, shrouding mountains in shadow and painting the land in silent sorrow. Hidden among merchant caravans and passing fishing boats, the Whitebeard pirates and Straw Hats slipped ashore. Their banners stayed hidden. Their faces were marked by days of wary travel. Naruto, cloaked in a worn kimono and broad straw hat, peered up at the jagged hills. Somewhere beyond, legends whispered of dragons, samurai, and a country chained in darkness. Naruto drew in the strange scents of Weno, sweet sakura, burnt rice, and the ever-present tang of fear. At his side, Ace tugged his own disguise, grumbling. Who knew pirates would end up playing ninja? Luffy, munching a rice ball, muffled. We're not ninja, we're samurai. Jinbei shot him a look, and the others stifled nervous laughter. As they entered the first village, the reality of Weno struck them. Houses leaned in ruin, gardens lay barren. Children worked fields while their elders coughed behind cloth masks. Soldiers in beast masks strutted through the streets, their laughter cruel as they seized food and coin from trembling merchants. Kaido's mark was burned on every heart. Naruto's fists clenched. He remembered hunger in his own childhood, the helplessness of the powerless. He glanced at Marco, who met his gaze and nodded, their silent vow to never let family or strangers suffer alone. Suddenly, shouts erupted at the village gate. A group of samurai, ragged but proud, stood facing the soldiers. The tallest, bearing twin swords and wild eyebrows, called out, "That's enough. The people have nothing left to give." The soldiers drew clubs. "Kinemon, you want to join the prisoners?" Before the fight could break, Naruto and Ace stepped forward. "Trouble already?" Ace smirked. Luffy grinned. "Let's help them out." Without waiting for permission, he launched himself at the soldiers, scattering them like straw dolls. Naruto landed beside the samurai, bowing slightly. "We're friends. Whitebeard's sons. Here to honor Oyaji's promise and free Weno." The samurai's leader, Kinemon, stared in shock, then joy. The time has come. The rebellion lives. As the village cheered, the crew slipped into an abandoned tea house on the outskirts. Kinemon introduced his companions, Kiku, Reizo, Denjiro, and the battered but unbroken rebels of Weno. In hushed voices, they spoke of Kaido and Orochi's tyranny, how factories poisoned the rivers, how laughter and music were outlawed, how hope had become a distant memory. The Whitebeard and Straw Hat pirates listened, determination hardening in every heart. As plans were whispered over maps, the door creaked open and a figure entered, a young woman in samurai armor, her hair wild, her eyes bright with secret dreams. "I heard new faces arrived," she said, her voice strong and eager. "If you're here to fight Kaido, count me in." Naruto turned, and for a moment, the world stopped. He met her gaze, felt the weight of fate in the air. There was a spark, recognition of kindred spirits, a promise neither could name yet. "I'm Naruto," he said softly, offering his hand. She grinned. "I'm Yamato, Kaido's daughter, and I'm done hiding." The room went silent, then erupted into laughter and shouts. Marco clapped Naruto on the back. Ace shot him a knowing grin, and Luffy declared, "If you're a rebel, you're family." Yamato smiled at Naruto, fire in her eyes. "I've read the stories of Odin, of freedom and adventure, but I want to see them with my own eyes. Will you show me?" Naruto nodded, heart pounding. "We will." Together, outside, the night deepened, and the shadows of Weno seemed to shift. Far away, Kaido's fortress gleamed with cruel light, a dragon waiting in the dark. But in that little tea house, the seeds of hope took root. Pirates, samurai, rebels, and dreamers, bonds formed, a family grew. In the east, the first storm clouds gathered. The battle for Weno's soul was coming, and this time, the world would shake. Night in Weno fell fast and thick, the moon shrouded behind clouds as if hiding from the land's pain. But in the overgrown garden of an abandoned temple, the flicker of lanterns and laughter lit up the darkness. The rebels had gathered, pirates and samurai, ninja and wanderers, forming a circle of hope around Naruto, Yamato, and the Straw Hat crew. Naruto crouched in the dust, drawing lines in the earth. "First rule of ninja training," he grinned, "is learning to move unseen, even when someone's looking right at you." He flicked a pebble. It struck Luffy in the forehead. Luffy yelped, spinning to find nothing but a leaf drifting in the wind. Kinemon watched, skeptical but curious, as Naruto blended ninja agility with the Whitebeard pirate's brute strength and samurai swordplay. "We fight in the open," Kinemon said, crossing his arms. "This sneaking is a strange path." Yamato, eyes bright, crouched beside Naruto. "It's not just sneaking. It's about using what you have: speed, spirit, heart. Like Odin did. Like you do." Ace clapped the samurai on the back. "Trust me, this guy knows how to turn any weakness into an advantage. Just don't let him talk you into tree climbing contests. He cheats." Naruto laughed, shrugging. "Only if you're too slow." As the rebels watched, Naruto and Yamato sparred, her heavy club crashing down, his chakra swirling in arcs of blue and gold. They moved in harmony, the clash of wood and fist echoing like a promise. When Yamato landed a hit, Naruto grinned and rolled, popping up with a Rasengan fizzing in his palm. "That's the spirit. Now try this. Combine your haki with your swing, let it flow." Yamato's next strike left a crater in the ground. The samurai gaped in awe. Even Marco let out an impressed whistle. Luffy bounced in, determined to try, only to trip over his own feet. "I'll get it next time," he declared, full of stubborn pride. As training went on, Naruto walked among the rebels, encouraging them, correcting stances, sharing small tricks. How to focus ki for a quick dodge, how to hide even a giant like Reizo in plain sight. Kiku wept openly after landing her first shadow step. We can do this. With you, maybe we have a chance." But hope was hard-won. At dawn, intel arrived from Kanjuro and Denjuro, disguised as merchants. Orochi had ordered another village burned, its people condemned for disloyalty. Kaido's forces rampaged unchecked, using new weapons smuggled in from the world's black markets. Every story cut deeper. Naruto stood in the quiet aftermath, fists trembling. Yamato found him by the broken temple gate, staring into the mist. "Orochi's worse than I ever imagined," Naruto muttered, voice thick with anger and guilt. "Sometimes I wonder if we're too late." Yamato leaned on her club, gaze soft. "You're not alone. When I was a child, I dreamed of escaping, of seeing the sun and not fearing the dragon's shadow. You showed up, and suddenly, it's like Odin's dream is alive again. Like I can hope." Naruto turned, surprised. "You're Kaido's child. How did you keep that hope alive?" She smiled, almost shy. "I read about Odin, about heroes and freedom, but I never believed I could be part of that story. Not until now." For a moment, they stood together, moonlight painting silver halos on the cracked stones. Naruto took a breath. "When I was little, I had no one. But Whitebeard, he gave me a home, a dream bigger than revenge. He taught me that family is who you choose. That's why I fight. For the people who have no one else." Yamato touched his shoulder. "Then let's fight together. For Weno. For every child who dreams of the sun." He nodded, a promise shining in his eyes. "For Weno. For freedom." Training became ritual. Every night, the rebels grew stronger, faster, bolder, more unified. Samurai and pirates sparred, learned each other's tricks, found laughter in the struggle. Naruto led by example, blending quake power and chakra, samurai blade and ninja stealth. Even Marco and Jinbei, seasoned warriors, adapted new moves. Luffy finally mastered a clumsy but effective shadow step. Ace and Kiku sparred at sunset, laughter echoing through the ruined halls. But it was in the quiet hours, under the moon, that Naruto and Yamato's bond grew strongest. They traded stories, Whitebeard's kindness, Kaido's cruelty, and the weight of carrying a legend. Sometimes, Naruto would catch Yamato watching him with a smile, a rare softness in her fierce eyes. One night, as rebels rested and the air thrummed with possibility, Yamato sat beside Naruto at the old temple stairs. She offered him a faded journal, Odin's crest etched on the cover. "Odin believed Weno could be free," she whispered. "I believe it too. As long as you're here, I think I can help make it real." Naruto smiled, warmed by her faith. "We'll do it. Together. On my ninja's word. And a pirate's honor." Above them, the moon shone clear for the first time in weeks, bathing Weno's battered hills in hope. And in the darkness, plans began to turn. The alliance was ready, the rebellion was rising, and for the first time, the dragon's shadow trembled. Kaido's fortress loomed over Weno like a nightmare. In the high halls, storm clouds churned as the Yonko's rage broke at last. Word had reached him. Rebels gathered in secret, samurai returned, pirates in disguise, teaching hope and defiance. The storm fox, Whitebeard's son, walked Weno's earth. Kaido's massive fist slammed the table, splintering it. Find them. Burn every rat hole. If it's the Straw Hats, if it's Whitebeard's brat, I want their heads on pikes. His officers, Queen, King, and the Flying Six, scattered, spreading terror through the land. Dawn bled red over a ruined fishing village at the river's edge. Smoke curled from blackened rooftops, and the cries of hungry children echoed through the empty streets. Naruto and Yamato arrived just as the beast pirates swept in, hulking men in animal masks, smashing doors and dragging villagers into the open. Marco and Ace flanked the rebels. Luffy, Kinemon, and a handful of samurai hid in the shadows, waiting for Naruto's signal. Queen, grinning wickedly, barked orders from a wagon laden with weapons. Line them up. Kaido wants a message sent. Make an example of every traitor, young or old. Naruto stepped into the street, cloak swirling, voice steady. Enough. This ends now. Queen's eyes widened. Well, the fox comes out to play. The beast pirates surged forward, blades flashing. Naruto wove hand signs, chakra swirling, and slammed his palm into the earth. The ground shuddered, a controlled quake racing through the street, knocking the attackers off balance, but leaving the villagers untouched. Pirates, protect the people, Marco cried, launching himself in a blaze of blue fire. The battle exploded. Luffy punched through a squad with a Gomu Gomu no Red Hawk. Ace's flames curled around the wagons, cutting off reinforcements. The rebels, emboldened, rushed to free prisoners and pushed the pirates back. Naruto faced a towering beast pirate wielding a kanabo, his brute strength shattering stone. But Naruto's new training showed. Chakra and quake power fused in his fists, each blow sending shockwaves that rattled the very bones of his enemy. With a roar, he sent the brute flying through a wall. Amid the chaos, a group of villagers huddled, terrified. A young girl reached for her mother, tears streaking her dust-caked face. Please help us. Don't let them take us. Naruto knelt, smiling gently, and pressed his hand to the ground. You're safe. I promise. A gentle quake spread, raising a shield of broken earth around the villagers, protecting them from flying debris and stray attacks. Queen snarled, unleashing a barrage of bullets and plague bombs. Yamato leapt forward, her club spinning in a blur. Enough, Queen. You're done hurting Weno. She landed beside Naruto, meeting his eyes with a fierce grin. Let's show them what happens when you threaten family. For the first time, Yamato fought not as a shadow, but as herself. She swung her club, haki blazing, smashing through beast pirates and scattering their lines. Kaido's rule ends here, she shouted, voice ringing with conviction. Queen faced her, lip curling. So the ogre princess joins the traitors, huh? Kaido will break you. Yamato glared back, standing firm. Let him try. I am Yamato, daughter of Kaido, but free by my own will. And I stand with Weno. The villagers stared in awe as Naruto and Yamato fought side by side, their attacks weaving together like wind and thunder. Where Naruto shielded, Yamato struck. Where Yamato faltered, Naruto lifted her back up. Luffy and Ace's attacks filled the air with fire and light, and Kinemon led the samurai, blades flashing. A beast pirate captain tried to seize a boy in the chaos, but Naruto moved like a shadow, intercepting with a quake-powered punch that shattered the man's sword. Not today, Naruto said, voice low. Not ever again. The battle raged until the last of Queen's forces lay scattered and the village was free. In the aftermath, the villagers gathered, staring at the pirates in awe and gratitude. One old woman wept, bowing low before Naruto and Yamato. I thought all pirates were monsters, but you're heroes. Naruto's cheeks flushed, rubbing the back of his head. We're just doing what's right. Oyaji always said family is who you protect. Yamato knelt, smiling at the children. Weno will be free. We promise. The rebels cheered, hope flaring for the first time in years. Marco clapped Naruto's shoulder. You did it, Yua. Weno's people are seeing us, not as threats, but as the spark of a new age. In the shadows, a beast pirate messenger slipped away, fear and fury in his eyes. The Alliance's victory was no longer a rumor. Kaido would know, and he would not be merciful. But as the rebels and pirates celebrated, Naruto looked to Yamato, saw the pride and fire in her gaze, and knew they'd started something no tyrant could stop. The beast had stirred, but so had Weno's heart. Moonlight shimmered on Weno's tiled rooftops, silvering every shadow. Across the land, villagers and rebels waited in breathless silence. All eyes turned to Orochi's palace, where the tyrant's banners fluttered and Kaido's beast pirates prowled the walls. But tonight, the wind carried a new promise. The crescent moon would shine on a free Weno. In the bamboo grove, Naruto and Yamato crouched beside Kinemon, Luffy, Ace, and the rest of the alliance. Faces were streaked with soot and determination. Kinemon nodded, voice hushed but strong. We strike now. The festival hides our movements, but we must be swift. The prisoners, our friends, our hope, are waiting. Yamato's hand brushed Naruto's. I'll handle the northern gate, she whispered. See you inside? Naruto grinned, the bond between them electric. Wouldn't miss it. Let's show them what the moon's meant for. The operation began with a breath and a prayer. Samurai and pirates, cloaked as festival guests and shadowy ninja, slipped through alleys, scaling walls with chakra and grit. Luffy, Ace, and Marco drew off guards at the southern wall with a rowdy fireworks distraction, igniting confusion and chaos. Naruto and Yamato, leading the stealth team, crept through secret tunnels beneath the palace. The air was thick with anticipation. Up ahead, muffled cries echoed from the dungeons. Prisoners chained, but spirits unbroken. The first real threat struck in the dark corridor. Ultai and Page, one of the Tobarapo, Kaido's infamous Flying Six, blocking the way. Ultai cracked her knuckles, grinning. So, you're the troublemakers. I'm gonna squash you flat. Page One's beastly grin mirrored hers. Not if I eat you first. Yamato stepped forward, club spinning. You'll have to get through us first. Naruto formed hand signs, chakra crackling with new quake energy. Ace, take Page One. Yamato, and I have Ultai. Battle erupted. Tight, furious, barely room to breathe. Ultai's Zoan form crashed into Yamato, shockwaves splitting stone. Naruto ducked low, swinging chakra-laced punches, matching her blow for blow. Ace and Page One traded fire and fong, the corridor lit by bursts of flame. Meanwhile, Luffy and Marco crashed through the east wing, freeing prisoners, samurai, blacksmiths, villagers, every new ally swelling the rebellion's ranks. Follow the crescent moon, Kinemon shouted. Tonight, we take back our country. Back in the tunnel, Ultai landed a savage hit on Yamato, sending her skidding. Naruto caught her, their hands locking tight. You okay? Yamato wiped blood from her mouth, fire blazing in her eyes. Never better. Together, they combined their attacks. Yamato's club, shining with haki, met Naruto's quake-infused Rasengan. The force of the blow sent Ultai flying, crashing through the dungeon wall and knocking out a row of guards. Ace, wild with adrenaline, sent Page One tumbling down the steps with a fire-laced uppercut. That's for Dawn Island, Beast Boy. With the way clear, Naruto and Yamato led the rush into the dungeons, smashing chains and lifting prisoners to their feet. You're free, Naruto told them, tears glinting in the moonlight. Weno is rising. Above, the palace festival dissolved into chaos as the rebellion exploded. Fireworks lit the sky, samurai banners snapped in the wind, and the people's roar swept through the capital. Luffy and the freed warriors stormed the Great Hall, scattering Orochi's retainers and rallying the oppressed. Yamato, standing atop the palace steps, raised her club. I am Yamato, daughter of Kaido, but tonight I stand with Weno. Her voice echoed across the city, emboldening the rebels. Naruto leapt beside her, Whitebeard's sash gleaming in the moonlight. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. This is our promise. No more fear. The Tobarapo, battered but furious, rallied Kaido's forces for a last stand, but the tide had turned. Citizens rushed to aid the pirates and samurai, wielding farming tools and old blades with newfound hope. Kinemon led the charge on the palace gates. For Odin, for Weno. By dawn, the palace was a sea of banners and laughter. Orochi had fled deeper into his fortress, Kaido's officers scattered or captured. The country buzzed with the thrill of revolution. Naruto found Yamato on the palace balcony, gazing over the city as the sun broke through the storm. We did it, Yamato whispered, voice thick with emotion. Naruto smiled, taking her hand. Together, but the real battle's still ahead. Below, the rebels chanted and danced, the crescent moon flying high above Weno, a symbol of freedom reborn. Kaido would not let this stand, and everyone knew it. But for the first time, Weno's people looked to the dawn with hope, ready for the storm to come. Morning broke over the capital with a thunder of drums and shouts. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and cherry blossoms, banners of the crescent moon fluttering above rooftops. For the first time in years, Weno's city bells rang not in warning, but in revolt. The alliance surged through the streets, samurai, pirates, and villagers fighting side by side. Luffy and Ace led the charge down the main avenue, scattering beast pirates with every punch and flame. Marco's blue fire soared overhead, pushing back snipers on the walls. The people of Weno, long silent, poured from their homes, arming themselves with old blades, bamboo spears, anything they could find. Fear fell away like a worn mask. In its place was fury and hope. Inside Orochi's fortress, panic reigned. Guards scrambled to barricade doors. Orochi himself, dressed in gold and trembling, clutched his ceremonial blade and shouted at his terrified retainers. "Hold the gates. Where are Kaido's men? Where is my protection?" But outside, the tide had turned. Naruto and Yamato led a squad of rebels into the palace's heart. They moved with purpose, Naruto's chakra blazing, Yamato's club battering down doors. On the grand staircase, hostages, women, children, elders, were herded at sword point by Orochi's last loyal guards. "Back, all of you," a guard shouted. "The shogun says no one passes. Any closer and the hostages die." Naruto's voice rang clear. "No more. Not today." He vanished in a blur, reappearing between the guards and the hostages, arms outstretched. His chakra shield shimmered as blades glanced off, leaving only shallow sparks. "You want to hurt someone? You'll have to get through me." Yamato crashed into the fray, her club sending 2 guards flying. The remaining rebels swept forward, overwhelming the defenders. The hostages stared in disbelief as Naruto untied their bonds. "Go, run to the square. You're safe now." This ends today. Tears streaming, the rescued villagers pressed their foreheads to the floor. "Thank you, Stormfox. Thank you, Lady Yamato. You saved us all." Orochi, watching from his throne room, felt his last power slipping away. He screamed, face twisted in rage. "You fools! You'll never defeat me. Kaido will return. He will crush you all." Naruto strode into the throne room, Yamato at his side, the rebel army surging behind them. "It's over, Orochi. Weno doesn't belong to you anymore." Orochi drew his sword with trembling hands. "Stay back. I am the shogun. I am." He lunged, wild and desperate. Naruto dodged, his movements smooth and calm. Weno's future isn't built on fear. It's built on hope and on the courage of its people. Yamato stepped forward, voice strong. "My father's shadow is long, but it ends here. We will not be slaves to monsters or cowards." With a final cry, Orochi tried to strike again. Naruto met him head-on, a gentle but powerful palm pushing him back. An echo of Whitebeard's strength merged with the compassion of the will of fire. Orochi tumbled to the ground, blade clattering from his hand. The rebels seized the fallen shogun, dragging him before the crowd outside. There, on the palace steps, the people of Weno gathered in the thousands, faces young and old, eyes shining with disbelief and dawning hope. Kinemon raised his sword high. "The tyrant is fallen. Weno is free." A cheer thundered through the city, shaking the very stones. As the sun climbed higher, Naruto looked down at the sea of faces. He saw pride, tears, joy, and a question: what comes next? He turned to Yamato, who smiled through her exhaustion. "You showed them what freedom looks like," she whispered. "You gave them their courage back." Naruto shook his head. "We did. All of us. Weno saved itself." Yet above them, on the far horizon, storm clouds still gathered. Kaido's fortress loomed, untouched. The beast pirates regrouped outside the capital, their leader's return inevitable. As bells rang for freedom, Naruto's gaze hardened. "One battle left," he said quietly. "But today, we proved the people of Weno are not alone." Ace joined him, flames flickering in the sunlight. "You did good, little brother. But don't let your guard down. Kaido won't take this lightly." Luffy grinned, slapping Naruto on the back. "We'll win. Together." The capital erupted in celebration, banners flying and music echoing through the streets. For a single, shining morning, Weno was free. But the shadow of the dragon still stretched over the land. The true test was yet to come. The thunder rolled down from Onigashima, black clouds swirling above Weno like a living omen. On the battlefield outside the ruined capital, the rebel army gathered, samurai banners snapping, pirates steadying their blades, hope flickering in their eyes. In the distance, the mighty fortress loomed, a symbol of Kaido's iron reign. At the head of the alliance stood Naruto, Luffy, Ace, Yamato, Marco, and Kinemon. The air crackled with energy and dread as Kaido's shadow, immense and monstrous, rose atop the walls, first a towering man, then in a blink, the great blue dragon, scales gleaming in the lightning. Kaido's voice boomed over the fields, shaking the earth. So you've come. Insects, all of you. You think a handful of pirates, rebels, and children can bring down a god? Naruto stepped forward, cloak billowing, Yamato at his side. No gods here, just people who refuse to kneel. Kaido roared, fire flooding from his jaws. The ground exploded in a maelstrom of heat and stone, sending warriors scrambling. Luffy rocketed in with gear forth, fists blazing. I'll be king of the pirates, and you're in my way. Ace flanked him, flames burning blue. This is for every village you burned. The alliance surged. Marco's flames shielded the wounded. Kinemon and the samurai struck in coordinated waves, while Law teleported rebel squads past the dragon's rampages. But Kaido was a hurricane, every tail swipe flattening buildings, every blast knocking back even the strongest. The field became chaos, pirates and samurai dodging death, beast pirates roaring back. In the storm's heart, Naruto and Yamato charged together. Yamato wielded her massive kanabo, haki surging. Father, I am not your weapon. I am my own. Kaido shifted, thundering to the ground in his human form, towering above them. You, Yamato, you were always a disappointment. Come, show me this will of Odin you love so much. Yamato met his glare, trembling but unbroken. I'll show you my will. And I'm not alone. Naruto stepped forward, the air shimmering with chakra and the rumble of Whitebeard's quake power. He remembered Whitebeard's last words. A true family carries the world's hopes. Never fight alone, brat. He also felt a flicker in his heart, his mother's gentle voice. You are never truly alone, Naruto. Not with love in your heart. As Kaido's kanabo came down, Naruto met it with a palm glowing gold and blue. Quake release. Rasengan. The shockwave split the ground, forcing Kaido back. Kaido snarled. Interesting. But is that all you have? Luffy and Ace joined them, battered but grinning. Nah, Luffy laughed. We haven't even started. The four stood together. Yamato, Naruto, Luffy, Ace. Each shining with willpower, each pushing beyond their limits. Kaido's eyes narrowed. You cannot win. Despair is the fate of this world. Naruto stood tall, voice ringing out. I've seen darkness before. I've lived it. But I also know family. I know hope. And I know the world doesn't belong to monsters. It belongs to those who never give up. He unleashed the full might of his fused power, nine-tailed chakra flaring, quake energy roaring through his arms, the ground itself answering his call. Together with Yamato, her haki blazing, they launched a joint assault. Naruto's quake Rasengan and Yamato's haki-charged kanabo met Kaido's fist in an explosion that rocked the sky. Around them, the alliance pressed their advantage. Marco and Law coordinated the assault, samurai and pirates fighting as one, villagers shouting encouragement. Kaido, forced to his knees, glared up, blood streaming from his jaw. I am unbreakable. Yamato faced him, tears in her eyes. You could have loved this land. You could have been a father, but you chose fear. Naruto reached down, offering Kaido one last chance. It's over. Let it end. Kaido roared in fury, but his strength faltered. Naruto and Yamato struck together. One last blow, powered by everything they'd learned, every hope they carried. The dragon fell, the ground shuddering, his shadow lifting at last. Silence swept the battlefield. Then, as the dust cleared, a cheer rose, soft at first, then deafening. The mighty Kaido was defeated. His reign was over. Luffy, Ace, and Marco ran to their friends, hugging and laughing, tears streaming down their faces. The samurai knelt, honoring their fallen and their heroes. Weno's people poured into the open, singing, shouting, waving banners. Naruto found Yamato at his side, both of them shaking, exhausted, but triumphant. She looked at him, eyes bright. We did it. For Weno. For our family. He smiled, voice raw. For everyone who ever dreamed of freedom. As dawn broke, painting Weno gold, Naruto felt the spirits of Whitebeard, Minato, and every friend who'd ever believed in him. And he knew this was only the beginning. The sun rose gentle and golden over Weno for the first time in memory. Morning light spilled through broken clouds, bathing the battered capital in hope and warmth. Where, just hours before, smoke and fear had reigned, now laughter echoed in the streets. Samurai in patched armor embraced their families. Children danced around pirates and rebels alike. The sound of music, forbidden for so long, filled the air like a promise. In the town square, banners of the crescent moon and phoenix flew side by side with the Whitebeard flag and the straw hat's grinning skull. It was a tapestry of survival and victory, a declaration that, at last, Weno was free. Naruto stood at the edge of the crowd, Whitebeard's sash bright at his waist, eyes shining with exhaustion and awe. Everywhere he looked, he saw faces, old friends, new allies, strangers changed by the courage they'd found in each other. Ace slapped him on the back, laughing. "We actually did it, little brother. Oyaji would be proud." Luffy, mouth stuffed with dango, grinned. "I want a party like this everywhere we go." Kinemon approached, bowing deeply. "Storm Fox, Luffy Dano, Ace Dano, Weno owes you a debt it can never repay. Your names will be sung here for 100 years." Naruto shook his head, a little embarrassed. "You don't owe us anything. We fought because it was right. You saved yourselves." Kinemon's eyes shone with tears. "Even so, the future of Weno is brighter for your courage and your kindness." That afternoon, the town gathered by the great river for a feast. The samurai offered stories, sake, and songs of Odin and the new heroes. Pirates and villagers shared food and laughter, forgetting old wounds. Even Marco, rarely at ease, relaxed, blue flames flickering as he raised a toast. In the quiet that followed, Yamato found Naruto beneath a blooming cherry tree on the hillside above the city. She wore samurai armor and a shy smile, her eyes soft in the gentle light. He looked up as she approached, heart pounding in his chest. "Hey, you're not celebrating." She shrugged, sitting beside him, knees brushing. "I will. I just needed a moment. After everything, it still doesn't feel real." They sat in silence, watching fireflies dance over the city, the sound of celebration drifting on the breeze. Yamato turned, her voice low. "You gave me something I never had before. A reason to hope. A place to belong." Naruto met her gaze, cheeks warming. "You did the same for me. I grew up believing I was cursed, alone, unwanted. But Whitebeard showed me family is something you choose. And I choose this. I choose you." Her breath caught, and for a heartbeat the world was only the two of them, side by side, sharing the dawn. She reached out, fingers twining with his. "Then let's see what lies beyond the horizon." Together, Naruto squeezed her hand, a vow unspoken but understood. "Wherever we go, whatever storms come, we'll face them as family." They sat quietly, watching the sky, hope blooming as the sun climbed higher. As the festival wore on, the samurai and villagers gathered for farewells. Kinemon and the rebels bowed low, pressing gifts of rice balls and handmade charms into the pirates' hands. "Your journey is not over, but Weno will always welcome you home." Luffy waved, already thinking of the next adventure. Ace, grinning, challenged Kinemon to a drinking contest, vowing to return and lose with style. Yamato, dressed in traveler's garb, stood with Naruto at the water's edge. She turned to the crowd, voice ringing clear. "Weno's fight is finished. My place is with those who dream of a freer world. I sail with Naruto and his family, as a samurai of Weno and a child of the sea." Cheers erupted. Marco called. "The Moby Dick welcomes you, Yua. Hope you like adventure and chaos." Naruto caught Yamato's eye, warmth and promise in his smile. "Ready for the next journey?" She nodded, laughter in her voice. "As long as you're by my side." The next morning, the ships set sail from Weno's shore. As the sun touched the horizon, word of Kaido's fall sped across the Grand Line like wildfire. In the halls of the world government, elders glared at the headlines. "Kaido defeated. Whitebeard's legacy rises. The will of D shakes the world." Pirate crews everywhere cheered. People whispered the names of the Storm Fox and his family as hope. The world, once ruled by fear, trembled with new dreams. On the deck of the Moby Dick, Naruto and Yamato watched the land fade, hands entwined, hearts burning with purpose. Luffy stood at the helm, shouting, "Next stop, wherever the wind takes us." Ace laughed, fire and joy in his eyes. Marco raised the Whitebeard flag to the sky. Naruto looked forward, Yamato at his side, the future bright and unknown. "This is just the beginning," he said. as the sails filled and the horizon opened wide. The age of freedom, of family, and of hope had dawned, and their adventure was far from over. End of Weno arc. And that wraps up today's story. What if Naruto was raised by Whitebeard? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did putting it together. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment with your thoughts or your own what-if ideas. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.